All right, it's 9 a.m. Let's go ahead and get started. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Take a moment to read the ethics statement. Board members are reminded that it is our duty to avoid conflicts of interest and the appearance of conflicts of interest as we handle the work of this advisory board. Does any member of the advisory board know of any conflict of interest or any appearance of conflict with any matters coming before us today? If so, please state them for the record.
Team CFA Pender, or chair of a CFA school.
All right. During the course of the meeting, if you become aware of any apparent or actual conflict of interest, please bring the matter to my attention. It'll be your duty to abstain from discussion on the matter and from voting on the matter. The mission statement of the Charter School Advisory Board is to ensure the existence of high-quality charter schools in North Carolina. We've already approved the minutes in the agenda, so at this time we'll hear an application update from Dr. Allen.
Chair Quigley, Vice Chair Walker, Committee Co-Chair Kakadelis, and all respective members of the board, good morning.
Morning.
Today, I'm going to give you a brief review of the interview process time limits, and then we'll go ahead and move into our interviews for today. So as you know, the interview process is an opportunity up to 1 hour in length for the board to ask in-depth questions of each applicant. The timeline is as follows. So I will provide a brief overview of each application. The applicants will then have up to 3 minutes to introduce themselves, the members of their board, their role on the board, and their current occupation. You as a board will then have up to 20 minutes to review and discuss the application rubric. You'll then have up to 20 minutes to ask any questions of the applicant that you may have, and then you'll have up to 10 minutes to deliberate. Finally, you will have up to 5 minutes to make a recommendation as a board. For applicants in the room, I ask that you all will line up at the microphone when it is your time to speak. All members of your board should then have a seat in the designated seating area. And if you have a question that is posed to you, please be sure to come to the podium and speak clearly into the microphone. Are there any questions before we get started? Okay. Our first applicant group today is Griffin Leadership Academy.
Great. All right. So you'll tee that up, right?
I will. The applicant appearing before the board today is Griffin Leadership Academy. This full interview will be led by Chair Alex Quigley. They're proposing to locate in Greene County. The proposed grade levels and projected student enrollment are as follows. Year 1, K through 2, 270 students. Year 2, K through 3, 360 students. Year 3, K through 4, 450 students. Year 4, K through 5, 540 students. Year 5, K through 5, 540 students. We do have an LEA impact statement for this applicant. We also did have a due diligence report completed, and those have been uploaded to eBoard. Pass-fail ratings are as follows. Mission, purposes, and goals, 4 pass, 1 fail. Education plan, 4 pass, 1 fail. Governance and capacity, 4 pass, 1 fail. Operations, 3 pass, 2 fail. Finance, 4 pass, 1 fail. This applicant has not submitted a special request. They are not a repeat applicant. They did receive assistance from Leaders Building Leaders in the North Carolina Charter Accelerator, and they did pay a fee of $1,000. This application was deemed complete. You now have 3 minutes to introduce yourselves and the members of your board. Thank you.
Did you say that the due diligence was in eBoard?
Actually, I believe I may have emailed that to you all.
Okay.
Yeah, but we'll put it on eBoard for your convenience.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Josh Prescott. I'm the board chair, and I'll have each team member come up and introduce themselves. But like I said, I'm Josh Prescott. I'm retired military Air Force, and now my current position is I'm a youth pastor, assistant pastor at a church in Wilson. and then I'll have the rest of the team come up. This is Steve Beckett.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen. Steve Beckett, retired Air Force, currently wing historian from the 916th Air Refueling Wing at Seymour Johnson Air Force Base. I retired 2010 after 18 years in the service. Pursued a history degree, taught 6th grade history, loved it, and that set the tone for now.
Good morning. My name is Nancy Henderson. I'm a board member. I am a retired 32-year veteran with North Carolina Public Schools. I retired and went back into the education realm, teaching pre-K currently.
Good morning. I'm Todd Forgette. I am the CEO of an educational consulting company. We have 19 years in educational leadership, specifically focused on school improvement. We work primarily in the mid-Atlantic region, I guess, now a little bit further north as I think about it. We work primarily with traditional public schools, but also work with charter schools. I am serving as the secretary of GLA's board of directors, and I do have experience as CEO of a charter school, and I am licensed in administration and special education in both North Carolina and Virginia.
All right. Are you the person that would be the principal? Or are you going to be a board member?
Yes, I would be. The intent is to apply to be the chief academic officer at the school, yes.
Okay. Okay, great. So is it cold in here?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm not complaining,
Okay. Just checking.
although my hands are a little cold.
Yeah, I'm freezing. Okay, so let's areas that folks want to focus on for this application. Anything specific that you want to that jumps out at people they want to focus on?
I have a question about the board itself, if I may,
Okay.
Chair. I see in the application you have 5 board members, 2 are out of state. What are the connection to the out-of-state folks to either the fellow board members or to the area where the school is actually going to be proposed or is proposed?
Thank you. We actually only will have one board member out of state who could not attend today. That's Blair Lockamy. He works with Microsoft. He's up in the DC area. And the other board member was myself, but as of February 19th, I purchased a home and moved back to Wayne County.
Just out of curiosity, what's the gentleman from Microsoft that lives in DC? Does he have a?
He had a connection. He served on a board at Longwood University for their business board in Virginia, and I knew him through an acquaintance, and it's something that he was interested and excited about through my time at Longwood University as well. Yeah.
My question is, why Greene County? Because none of these board members live in Greene County.
Yeah, so we chose Greene County because of the need and because I live in Goldsboro, right by Greene County, right down the road from it. And the location that we picked was able to serve not only Greene County, but because of the location, it would also be Lenoir and the northern end of Wayne. So that's why we picked Greene County.
Have you received any support from Greene County?
Yes, ma'am, we have. We did surveys. We went to local events asking if there would be an interest in our school and what we were offering, what we were trying to do. And yes, ma'am, there was an interest.
Okay, go ahead.
I like the fact you're starting with kindergarten, going to 2nd grade, and starting small. Could you tell me specifically then what your literacy plan is and what you're going to be doing in literacy?
Yes, ma'am. Specifically for literacy, we will definitely be following the North Carolina Essentials, but we are also proposing an academic model that combines direct instruction approach with the core knowledge approach. So as we had mentioned in the application, one of the biggest focus for our literacy is going to be the acquisition of language skills, so the learning the opportunity of language through our language arts curriculum. So adhering back to Ed Hirsch's work on the importance of cultural literacy for all kids would be important, and it's well aligned with the demographics of Greene County and the sections of Lenoir and Eastern Wayne County that we're looking to serve.
Some people on the board had worked previously with Wayne Preparatory Academy, and it was around the time that Wayne Prep got pretty shaky financially, dealing with the buildings and with the bonds, the things that were kind of lumped in together with Thunderbird Academy. And so, you know, I just want to, you know, based on past experience, what did y'all learn from that, and how would you make sure that a situation like that doesn't happen again at Griffin?
Yeah, I'll come back up and address that, but I'm gonna let the managing director, who was the managing director at the time, address it, and then I'll add some comments at the end.
Yes, as Josh mentioned, I was the managing director and CEO at the time. It was a very interesting history, which I know that you all lived as well. There were portions of it that I was not privy to, merely because it was being handled at the board level. I will tell you that after the first year, when the founding chairman of the board asked me to step in a full superintendent CEO role, at that point, my team took over finances, governance, well, obviously not governance because of the board, but operations, supporting governance through policy writing. So I think some of the biggest things that my takeaway from that experience after year 3, after we were able to recover financially, we were able to begin the recovery for academics, was the importance of board training and the importance of making sure that there is a clear understanding between governance and oversight versus management, and that any institution of charter schools needs to make sure that they're clear on that area. If they would like a board that is managing the day-to-day, that's important, that's a fine choice, but make that clear, and you don't necessarily need to hire a CEO then to oversee that institution. So I think that was probably the biggest takeaway for me.
Actually, yeah, he touched on what I was
Yeah, you have to come up to the microphone, Lee. I don't think it works. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, he actually touched on the governance and stuff like that I was going to talk about, so he covered everything that I was going to say.
Okay, and did either one of y'all work for Rocky Mount Prep with Mastermind?
I did not.
Yes.
I mean, what did you learn from that? I mean, I guess that's where my concern is the is the connection with Rocky Mount and Wayne Prep, both schools that had some pretty serious issues.
Yeah.
And trying to make sure that we don't have a school that's going to have those same kind of issues.
Certainly. So that was a completely different situation. I was brought on as from a project base through Rana Systems, through the educational consulting company. I served for a year under Doug Haynes. He was the CEO or the managing director, and the decisions that were made at a different team level. I did not serve as a director per se with reference to planning and strategic planning in that aspect. What I did handle was obviously all of the recommendations for program updates, professional development, and then in-class coaching. But there was unfortunately a little bit of disconnect. But that was much different from the experience with Wayne Prep, only because the experience with Wayne Prep I was much more involved in understanding what was happening at the board level. So as a matter of fact, after the year I served with Doug Haynes, they further attempted to contract with our company to continue to provide the professional development services. Okay. So we played more of a role of professional development provider at Rocky Mount Prep.
Okay. Thank you. Sure.
I mean, I guess while we're on this governance stuff, so basically the president and the secretary of the board are gonna resign potentially when the school opens, but that only leaves 3 board members. How are we gonna mitigate that?
Yeah, so we're actively looking for new board members, specifically in Greene County, to have that voice there, and we're just looking for the right mesh, that buy into the vision and the mission of the charter school. So we're not trying to keep it to 5. We'd actually like to grow it to 7, and then so that's what our plan is for that.
Okay, so if I could have one of the other board members come up and talk to us about kind of how you became a member of this board.
I actually worked with Dr. Forget at Wayne Prep for 3 years, so I'm familiar with the direct instruction program and that model and the wonderful things it does, you know, to help a child learn. So that was my association with the board.
Okay. And so
I was recruited to teach history at Wayne Preparatory Academy, 6th grade. Taught that, switched over to Director of Operations, hired by the new Managing Director. Subsequently, I was laid off, as were several of us, and Mr. Prescott approached me and said, "We want to try this right from the beginning. Create a board. Would you serve?" And I said yes.
So are
In a
you
nutshell.
planning to teach at the school as well?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. I'm pursuing my historian career, but I have chosen to serve the board.
and there's another board member?
Yes, that was Blair Lockamy. Unfortunately, he's the out-of-state board member that was planning on coming today, but he works with Microsoft. I believe we submitted a letter through the portal, his letter indicating that obviously he is with and behind the board and was sorry not to be in attendance today.
So everybody on this board is associated with Wayne Prep except the guy in DC? Was at
Yes.
some point associated with Wayne Prep except the guy in DC?
Yes, ma'am, you are correct. Yes, everyone here has served at Wayne Prep in a capacity.
And just to be clear, you're also on the board of Wayne Leadership Academy, but no one else on this board is.
That is correct. Yes, I'm serving on Leadership Academy of Wayne, but no one else from this board is.
Okay. And that school is going to be in Wayne County, where most of y'all are from.
Yes, sir, in the southern areas of Wayne County.
Okay. All right, I think, okay. I mean, I think we'll come back to this. Direct instruction has been mentioned a number of times. Could someone kind of come up and give me their understanding and vision of what that looks like?
I can share direct instruction from a teacher perspective, just as giving you a outline of what a day might look like in our classroom. Of course, it starts with greeting students at the door, because that's a main focus, is setting the tone for the day. Our direct instruction centers around what we call Walk to Read and March to Math is a theme that we use. So it includes a lesson, a direct instruction lesson, direct instruction, and a skill. And that's repeated several times, followed by some guided practice, followed by maybe some cooperative group work, and then followed by some independent practice. If a student doesn't master that concept, which we gauge through mastery tests and individual assessments, then we go back and reteach that lesson several times until that child masters it. The same kind of sequence follows with math as well. So the student is hearing that information several times. So we break out in a group, and it's homogeneously grouped. So we break out into a group for Walk to Read. They spend time with that teacher for an extended amount of time, probably an hour. And then your day might go to resource classes like art, music, and PE, and then come back together in that homogeneous group for math. They would not have the same teacher. It's like changing classes. So they wouldn't have the same teacher necessarily all day long. They might have a homeroom teacher, then a different teacher for reading, and maybe a different teacher for math. But in each of those classes, the instruction is catered to that student's need because it is based on their instructional level and where they're at. So
When you say direct instruction, are you talking capital D, capital I, as in reading, mastery, connecting math concepts? Or are you talking little d, little I, as in a concept?
no, the first, yeah.
What you just described would be true for kindergarten as well, with the
Yes.
walk to read in March?
Yes, it's true for all the grades. So,
What about the special needs students, AIG, EC, EL?
I'm gonna let Dr. Fredette answer that.
Yeah, our special needs or at-risk population, we do embed everything through the MTSS framework. So the specific modifications or specifically designed instruction, your SDI for our exceptional children, would be developed through the IEP team as needed. So the benefit of using the direct instruction model is that it is the capstone of differentiated instruction, being as defined as identifying students' instructional levels first and foremost so that we can accelerate their learning. So when we work with at-risk students, they may need more opportunities for practice, they may need some pre-teaching of lessons or reteaching of lessons, or they may need additional accommodations based on their exceptionality.
Will there be an EL teacher specific, because I know this area is probably has.
Yeah, we are. I think first and foremost, from a budgeting standpoint, we planned to address our exceptional children's needs, and in there, we would obviously respond to an ELL population by substituting a position as needed for English language learners. Yep. We do anticipate definitely English second language learners as well. I think it's almost 12%, as we had mentioned in the charter application. I think one of the things, again, learning with reference to learning and charter schools was we are expecting to have a potential self-contained classroom for exceptional learners as well. That was something in the past that I don't think we were readily available for, so we had to scramble to make those changes. So.
And I did not see an AIG teacher, so how do you handle your gifted students?
So the plan for AIG is embedded again we've embedded it in the MTSS model. So the idea of, and within the direct instruction, so the idea of teaching kids at their instructional level allows for not only identifying, for example, a second grader that might be reading at a first grade level, but those second graders reading at a fourth grade level as well. So it's a little bit embedded already into the program. The extended activities, then an extension enhancement or enrichment that would come beyond that will be overseen by the academic person as well as the teachers delivering the instruction.
So is it fair to say that most of the instruction will be homogeneously grouped?
Yes, for reading and for math, as Ms. Henderson had shared, the premise of the direct instruction model is we can accelerate learning if we control for students' instructional levels as they come in the door, whether it's low, on, or above, and the effects on all three groups is what's driving us towards the model.
And so when we're talking about direct instruction, we're talking about reading, mastery, and math. What curriculum did you ask that?
Connecting math concepts, yeah.
Connecting math concepts. And core knowledge with reading mastery?
Yes, so reading mastery signatures is recognized and acknowledged through Ed Hirsch's core knowledge group as a program that adheres to the core knowledge concepts. So we'll be bringing in, again, that focus on vocabulary and opportunity of language for students with our diverse population. The listening and learning program specifically for core knowledge to incorporate into our into our English language arts time, so that they are experiencing the rich literature, rich language, rich vocabulary outside of what they're getting from the Reading Mastery Signatures program. Then we will be adhering to the combination of the core knowledge sequence for history and science and the domain mapping across our electives also.
So you'll be doing reading mastery through grade 5?
Yes, as long as the students need it. So we may have some fifth graders that place out of the program, again, looking at their instructional level, if they're ready for, ELA 7, English Language Arts 7, or 6 for that matter, we would extend from there.
So, Mr. Forget, you said you were going to be the CAO?
Yes,
which
ma'am.
is the academic leader.
Yes.
Are any of you board members going to be the CEO?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Prescott?
Yeah, I will apply for that position. Yes, ma'am.
So who runs the school? CEO or
CEO.
CAO?
CEO.
CEO runs the school, the CAO
It's in charge of
over
academics.
instruction.
Yeah, and all that stuff. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so let's talk about just getting students. 270 students, not a huge number, but you're only wanting them in a pretty small grade band, rural community. What's your kind of thinking around your marketing plan and the students that you're going to aim to recruit?
Yeah, the marketing plan is just we're going to have feet on the ground. We're going to be going to the festivals and stuff like that. We're going to be in the newspapers or the radios, whatever it needs to be to reach students, word of mouth, all those types of things. Social media, we've had a lot of hits on our social media already through Facebook and stuff like that about an interest and about marketing for those things. Like I said, we did the surveys also. I think the total was 170 or something surveys just from the little time that we did at the festival. So there's an interest there, but being rural, that is going to be one of the factors that's going to be hard to pursue, and we're aware of that. That's why we're going to rely heavily on our marketing and meeting that need.
And you're going to provide transportation and free lunch, it looks like.
Yes, sir.
Well, it says limited busing, and the students would have to qualify for transportation.
What's that mean?
Yeah, so can you explain how you qualify for transportation?
Well, we're going to adapt. We're going to adapt to the needs of our students. So, I mean, if we need to provide transportations for the students, we will. Is there anything you want to add to that?
I mean,
I believe the reference of limited busing was an indication that we were anticipating a drop-off as well. And I think it referred to, we were learning from what other effective charter schools do with reference to mileage. So again, looking, that limited meaning, do we want to send out buses 90 miles, 50 miles? And I think that's just something as we continue to investigate transportation, that's one of the areas that we are learning the most from right now.
so you're going to participate in the free and reduced lunch program. You have budget 30,000. That's on top of the revenue that you have. Just want to make sure I understand how you budgeted this.
So cold breakfast, hot lunch, $3.50 per lunch for those who pay. This is a high free and reduced. What is your anticipated free and reduced lunch population?
98 to 100%.
Yeah, because Greene County is like 75%.
Yeah, and I think they qualified up to 100 on the chart that we used. So I think between the areas we were anticipating 98 to 100%.
So how does the charging $3.50 for lunch offset the students who are eligible for free and reduced lunch? Because it sounds like the majority of them are going to be eligible.
Right. I think in anticipation of the kids that weren't eligible, if they would like to buy lunch, that we would try to keep it in a fair price range at $3.50, So, and again, the national lunch program is an area that we're still learning about as well. From a budgeting standpoint, Mr. Quigley, I believe we were looking at trying to budget for potential expenses if students don't qualify, get lunch but don't pay for it, and at the same time looking, planning for warming ovens and things of that nature, so that we're in compliance with the national school plan.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out if you budgeted, you said you budgeted 30,000 in, for lunch. I'm just trying to, and then I don't know if you had projected revenue or you're just assuming revenue from
From how much?
the child
they pay?
nutrition is 30,000.
68,000.
Did you put budgeted revenue into the budget for lunch? I don't think you did.
No, we did not.
So you're just saying, you're basically saying whatever the overage is 30,000.
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Okay. What other questions do we have, board members?
I do have a question on the enrollment. Following up on that, from the community outreach you've done, surveys, I mean, do you have a sense of the percentage of your students that will come from Greene County versus the other counties? And the reason I'm asking is, I am reading the letter we had from the superintendent of Greene County, and she points out that, 540 students in year 5 represents almost 20% of their student population. That seems like an awful lot of students to come out of a rural county. I realize not all of them would come from Greene, but I don't know, this seems like high numbers to me in a rural place like Greene.
I found them here, I'm sorry. I don't remember the exact percentages, but of the initial enrollment, we were looking for, it looks like 50% from Greene County, and then the other 50 split between Lenoir and Eastern Wayne. So when we did our community outreach and our events, one of our largest events was in Lenoir County, and there was a high interest in Lenoir County as well to send students. As a matter of fact, I think Mr. Prescott was talking about our social media. Our last post just announcing that we were coming today hit over 1,000 folks. So there does seem to be a generated high interest for the school.
But even and I'm not trying to be pushing back, but even at that, if half the students come from Greene, then if the letter we have from the superintendent's correct, then that still means you're going to be pulling about 10% of their student population.
I think that's correct. I think we anticipated between 8 and 10%.
Mr. Forget, do you have, so when I looked at Appendix A, I didn't see specific numbers of parents that were interested. Do you guys have specific numbers, like how many parents say they have kindergartners that would enroll first grade, second grade, this first year, et cetera?
I do not think, I don't think we have that yet at this time. I think that's our next step.
But not specific.
Yes, ma'am, because we were obviously, as you know, 2 years out. Last year when we started the interest search, presented to the county commissions and went to the events, we were still and under anticipation.
One more question.
Who owns, confused now, Ronis, who owns that?
I own Rana Systems.
And that's the one that's the staff development?
Yes, ma'am, that's educational consulting.
Okay, so, but you're gonna be working at the school, so you will provide those skills, I'm assuming, without paying Ronis?
To the best extent I can, yes, ma'am.
So that brings up a good question,
Yes,
because
so-
the budget has enormous dollars towards staff development.
So
who's
what's
gonna-
that for
Yeah.
what's that for?
So we're definitely anticipating the need for leadership development. As you notice in our application, one of our cornerstones is a Franklin Covey and John Maxwell leadership approach. Those principles, looking at those, we do happen to know from our experience that purchasing the Leader in Me training, if we do as a board decide to go that way, is awfully expensive as well. At the same time, through use of the direct instruction model, we do anticipate instructional coaching during the day-to-day, so bringing in expert consultants to provide in-class coaching as well as we get started. I think the third aspect of that line item was the Teach Like a Champion approach that's also listed in our charter with reference to understanding and having a better aspect of classroom environment and culture. So we are anticipating to invest in our teachers heavily to bring them up to speed as fast as possible.
Okay, so then my $64 million question is, what is the professional development that you provide? What is it that Ronas provides that they would get free from you because you work there?
Yeah, so in the event that a request for proposals goes out for professional development on the direct instruction or the in-class coaching, we would anticipate submitting a proposal for that as a company for the board to consider.
Are you going to use core knowledge, both the language and skills program, or are you going to use like Reading Street? Or
We're going to use the Reading Mastery Signatures reading program as the core program. The core knowledge, which supports the use of the Reading Mastery, and they have a package for language and listening that really is what we're looking for to, again, to really increase and impact this group of students' language ability and vocabulary.
Okay.
I have a question on the facility. I read that the, looking at, for the first year, about a 16,000 square foot facility at $81,000 a year lease. That's $6,700 a month. That's pretty good for a $16,000 facility, I think. But I noticed in year two, it doubles the lease payment, and then the lease payment just keeps going up each year. Now, I understand you'll have more students and maybe adding, but just kind of explain that a little bit, because in year two, you talk about expanding your facility by about 30%, but yet the lease payment is doubling.
I can definitely speak to the finance side, and Mr. Beckett a little bit more proficient on the operations side. I think that was, again, that's in anticipation of growth, and as we've progressed through this process and we've started as a board entertaining meetings with organizations that can finance, we're finding that we're being challenged to commit a little higher percentage of funds. So it was a gentle balance between our first year and second year. If we, in the first year at 16,500 square feet, or as it said at that price, anticipating a double, increasing by double is probably pretty aggressive on our part, thinking that we might, after year two, be able to afford and build even larger facility. It may include, I think we had projected a potential gym facility as well, but I think that's why that number increases for the second year, as much as it does.
Do you know off the top of your head what percentage of your FTE is going to be tied up in the facility, say by year 2, 3?
I think by year two, it might be 16%. I want to say that's what we were challenged. We were challenged as high as 16 to 20, but we just, again, the research that the board's bringing back to our meeting says we can find solutions as low as $40 a square foot. So, of course, everybody wants to make their mark.
Who is is it a builder, a developer, a charter company that's going to do the facility?
We've just begun to entertain that. Mr. Beckett could probably speak a little more about the options.
We've been looking at modulars, prefabricated construction. Dr. Forget mentioned $40 a square foot. That's so far one of the best estimates we've seen for, I believe that one was 18,000 square feet. Part of our projection is upfront to include space for future growth while minimizing cost on the second budget, if that makes any sense whatsoever.
So the property that's identified is in Jason, has that been purchased, or, I mean, you guys are pretty certain you'll be able to get that piece of property?
That particular property is, I believe, still available, the one Jason. And we're also looking at 2 warehouse facilities that came up recently.
That would just be
That would be pre-existing structures. So we're both looking at pre-existing structures and properties. And in addition to that Jason property, there are 2 other similar sized properties as well.
Okay. Other questions?
The geography question. So this is Wayne County. Greene County.
Greene
This
County.
is Greene
Greene
County.
County.
Greene. Where's Wayne relative to Greene?
Below,
To the
where LaGrange?
LaGrange.
How many kids at Wayne Prep? Does anyone know?
We can find out.
Mr. Forget may know.
I think it was, at last report, it was over 700.
Who will be doing the student accounting and finances? Is that gonna be in-house or outsourced?
We actually did budget for use of Acadia to support us on both, with a person internal that can just be the main contact.
Any other questions? We're at we have about 23 minutes left. Obviously, we don't have to use all of our time.
I've got a question. Are you pretty confident that $44,000 is going to attract good quality teachers for your core content teachers in Greene County?
Yeah, we're pretty, that's gonna be another one of the difficulties that are, or at least obstacles that we're gonna encounter is students enrollments. That we know that's gonna be difficult. We're gonna have to be heavy on our marketing, and then getting quality teachers is once we get them hired, I'm pretty confident that we'll retain them. And there's gonna be some things that we're gonna do in-house that you see in the charter that about maybe bonuses for hitting targets and stuff like that'll hopefully entice some of that stuff also.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Quigley,
Yeah.
Wayne Prep has 675.
Okay, so unless anyone has any questions, we can discuss a little bit now, and if we have anything that comes to mind, we can ask. I mean, here's where I'm sitting on this. I think what these folks are trying to do is extremely difficult. Opening a school in a rural community that's going to serve almost 100%, based on what they're saying, low-income students is a significant challenge, and there's too many questions for me in this application to kind of to support it. There's some fuzziness about the potential contracting of services, but more importantly, I think the application is it's okay. I don't, but I feel like to do the work that they're going to engage in, it needs to be top notch. Also, you have a board of 5 people, only 4 are here, and 2 of those board members are going to work for the school. So we're basically have 2 board members that we have to have legally. You know, if I knew that I was starting a charter school and I was going to be the principal, I'd make darn sure that I had 7 board members, so that when I left, there'd be plenty that would be legally obligated. So I think that that just raises a lot of questions, because board members are going to be the ones that hold the school accountable and who are actually holding the charter, which I think it's great when you have the principal and the instructional person on the board. I think that's great when folks do that. I think we've seen, it's the way Henderson Collegiate was started, that's the way Kip Gaston was started. A lot of schools start with the people on the board, but the founding leaders on the board, and the leader drives a lot of the creation and the vision. I just think you have to have a full board so that when that person steps off, we actually are seeing
Have
the
a
people
solid board left.
that we know. And I just don't feel like I don't have confidence, frankly, in the app or the board right now to move them forward. So I will not be supporting the application.
I'm concerned that they're positioning the school in a county where no one lives.
That's
Especially, we had another group come before us to put a school in Greene County, and I think they might have had one member, but again, it was another board where they weren't invested, living, their children a part of those school systems already. It's concerning for me.
I like the fact that we're trying to get a charter school in a county that doesn't have a charter school.
Oh, yes.
I
And
like
this-
that.
I can definitely
Right.
attest that this area needs
Right.
choice.
And I like the education plan. I like that. My concern is the board also. I'd like to see somebody from Greene County on the board and have it fully developed so that when you guys step down to run the school, just like what Alex said, that there is strong support there and vision to keep it where it needs to be going.
I think you guys talked about your experience at Wayne Prep and the board being too hands-on. And I think this plan sets up to almost have a non-existent board, so I think you've kind of gone too far the other way. There needs to be a strong board left when you go to work.
Alex,
who wants
Yep.
to talk?
you would like to say something?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I agree totally with everything that you're saying as far as the board and stuff like that. We were very intentional and deliberate about who we chose the board. We could have got a 7 board member if we would have wanted. We could have had a board of 7 people if we wanted that. But we're specifically looking for people who are going to buy into the vision. I mean, we could, and we still figure we have time to bring the board online. We still got till 2021 till it opens up.
Except that our decision has to be based on
Right.
because who we give this charter to is a board.
Right.
So while you would have time, we would then, if, let's say you brought on people we didn't think were solid, we would have no recourse at that point.
And that's why we've been slow and deliberate about who we're bringing on, because we don't want just somebody. We don't want just a warm body. We don't want somebody that's only gonna be on there a year or so. We want somebody that sees what we're trying to do. Why we started small. K2, we could have projected K5, but no, we want to be intentional and deliberate, because we believe that if we start right, then we'll be able to maintain the mission, the vision, and it won't be just something wall fodder, something that we would potentially put on our walls, but something that we believe in, we walk out and we carry it. That's why we've been slow in that process for that, and that's why we chose Greene County, and that's why we chose to start K2 in those areas, because I was a kid from a rural area. I was a kid who was from a broken home. I was a kid that was from an abusive home, and I know the value of education, and I know the value of not only educating a student, but also displaying character and leadership abilities, and then also giving hope for whatever situation they're going to be in. So that's why we chose what we chose, and that's why we chose K2, and that's why we've done things the way that we've done things. It's not that we don't want 7 people. It's none of those things. It's not that the concerns that y'all have are valid. I could see those concerns, but there's been a methodology behind the reason why we did what we've done and those things.
I'll echo some, I guess, what my fellow C7 members have said. I think the board is of concern because there's 5 of you now, 2 of you are leaving, and one of them is a person who doesn't even live in the state. And so, we've been in front of many schools where the application was good, had questions about it, but when you had the ultimate confidence in the board, you know, that weighs a lot in our decision-making, and I'm kind of feeling like the application's good, there's a lot of potential here. There's not a charter in that county, but I don't know who I'm giving this charter to. I guess that's kind of what's weighing on my mind.
And I'll say, this is not to disparage the two of y'all that are remaining in, because y'all seem like very solid people and seem like you know what you're doing and what's going on. I think the thing is right now we are interviewing 2 of the 7 people that will be governing the board. So you're not even a majority of who will be governing the school at that time, and I think that's what gives us some pause to look at it. I don't want you to think that we're saying that we don't know if you could do it or not. We just don't know about the other 5 people that would be in there, because we don't know them, and I understand that, you know, the 3rd board member couldn't be here, but either then, I think that's a board member that lives out of state, which still makes it difficult. I think it's good to bring people in from out of state sometimes, because they bring in some expertise, but still, even then, we're looking at 3 out of a 7-member board seems to be the plan. And that just makes it difficult for me as well.
You ready for a motion?
Yeah.
Okay, I want to make a motion that we do not move Griffin Leadership Academy forward to ready to open status.
Second.
Okay, it's been properly moved in second. Discussion on the motion?
I'd like to add a little bit of discussion on this. I'm hearing that it's a really solid application. There's a need in the county that doesn't have a school. Please come back. You know, there's no cap on charters right now. We hope that remains. Next year you come back with a solid local representation. We want to see Greene County folks engaged and involved. Bring back more survey data on students who would be interested in enrolling, and I think you'll have a real strong chance of getting that charter opening a year later than you'd like, but it's worth it to do it right.
I'm going to be opposing this motion. I think Greene County needs this school. And I'm just, I guess I'd like to quiz my colleagues why it was a strong school board, not very important yesterday with Triumph, but all of a sudden we're all obsessing on the continuity of this board. So again, I like the application. I'm going to be voting against your motion.
I mean, I think yesterday we all said the board was strong, but it wasn't enough. There were still questions. Okay.
I just want to reiterate, yesterday I asked about the literacy plan at that school, and I could not get a very clear, it was just, we used the 5 domains. This one had a clear direct instruction, mastery reading, so that to me was the difference.
Yes, there was knowledge.
Yes. And so, again, reiterating what Mr. Mamoni said, please get your board together and come back. I would love to see the board. Okay.
All right. All right, I'll call for a vote on the motion. All in favor? All opposed? All right. Thank you. Hope to see you again. All right, at this time, we'll hear from Leadership Academy of Wayne. Well, why don't we wait? We're a little ahead. We'll take a 7-minute break.
I voted against. Cut my hand up too long.
Am I still waiting on with you?
Let's see.
You're starting the day out.
Let's see how much money you got with you.
So back at 10.
Stephen.
I agree.
I'm not convinced people even know they're out there.
Was it this one?
Yes, students, families, and just looking at stuff. They have a great idea.
because then we go to lunch. Because then we can like,
What they charge for a coach bus.
what are you serving for lunch that day?
Yeah, we'll have colossal.
Because
Well, our school cafeteria.
Could we order lunch in?
a lot of learning.
Because, I mean, there was even something on RBA's that you had to go back
My
and fix.
business manager is a caterer,
They almost,
and she isn't gonna let you order lunch, and she's gonna wanna fix it for you.
Yeah, so we
Local
could just,
government
I could just tell her, this is the many
realize.
people will
Yeah,
pay
a
you.
lot of people didn't know.
that it was a comprehensive.
Yeah,
So we had to go back and tell them.
yeah, and Acadia and everybody else.
Yeah, nobody knew.
This one, Ally.
Yeah.
Right. So just let me know.
There's a
How many
lot.
people, what all y'all wanna see?
Anyway,
Yeah, but
we're
test
still
coordinators
working
is
on
a good first step.
Because your teacher teach everything, right? You say, they're gonna wanna see reading and math, for sure.
K-5 will. Well, let's talk about it at lunch.
Okay, yeah, we can make it work.
Oh, Shannon.
All right, we're ready.
Chairman, quickly,
10:04.
we have the pleasure of having a State Board of Ed member, Jill Kamnitz, with us today. And I'd like to introduce Jill, and if you want to come up and say a few words to our School Advisory Board. Jill is on the EICS. Yes, committee that oversees charter schools, innovative school districts too. So we really appreciate your coming today and your support.
Thank you, Dave. I appreciate the invitation to come and sit in and listen to the work that you guys do. I've been on the, 6 months on the state board and immediately got put on the EICS committee, and it was quickly apparent to me that I needed to understand the work that you all do, because certainly you, as I just said to Mr. Walker, you guys are the ones that are in the weeds doing the hard work and the scrutiny for us. So I appreciate that very much. And it's already apparent to me that all of you are student-centered, and that's the most important thing we need to hold in front of us when we make decisions about schools. So I appreciate that, and I'm overwhelmed at the amount of information that you deal with and the sheer number of schools that you're having to oversee and be mindful about. And it's a huge job, so thank you to all of you. I know you spend an enormous amount of time on this. And again, the level of complexity that you're dealing with, and just that first hour that I've sat here, I'm so impressed with the probing questions, and again, you're focused on students, so thank you so much, and I'll look forward to listening to the rest of your deliberations today.
Well, thank you for coming.
Thank you for coming.
And we're trying to make your job easy.
I don't think it's easy on
I don't think so. Good luck with that. All right, it's 10:06. Let's get started early with Leadership Academy of Wayne. I'm also, and I'll hand it over to Dr. Allen to get us started.
The applicant appearing before the board today is Leadership Academy of Wayne. This interview will be led by Chair Alex Quigley. They're proposing to locate in Wayne County. The proposed grade levels and projected student enrollment are as follows. Year 1, K through 5, 522 students. Year 2, K through 6, 610 students. Year 3, K through 7, 698 students. Year 4, K through 8, 786 students. Year 5, K through 8, 786 students. We did not have an LEA impact statement for this application. We do have due diligence for this application, and it has been uploaded to eBoard. Pass-fail ratings are as follows. Mission, purposes, and goals, 3 pass, 2 fail. Education plan, 3 pass, 2 fail. Governance and capacity, all pass. Operations, 2 pass, 3 fail. Finance, all pass. This applicant did not submit a special request. They are not a repeat applicant, and they did not receive assistance from a third party. This application was deemed complete. You now have 3 minutes to introduce yourselves and the members of your board.
Good morning, I'm Dr. Marilyn Benton. I am a founding board member. I serve as the acting secretary, and I am owner of Academics Plus.
Good morning again, Dr. Forget, Todd Forget. I'll be serving as the treasurer of the board at Leadership Academy Wayne.
Good morning. My name's Diane James. I'm a retired public school educator with 30-plus years of experience in regular education as well as special education. I've had experience working with Academics Plus, and I did work at Wayne Preparatory Academy, as you are all aware, and I will be serving as a board member.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Ken Benton. I'm chairman of the board of Leadership Academy of Wayne. My job in the real world is a pastor, and I am the founding board chairman of Wayne Prep.
Okay, so let's get started here and see what aspects of this application we want to approve today. What questions do people have?
First thing is the numbers. Very ambitious, 6% of the LEA.
Yeah.
I think that's really ambitious.
Are there other board members? That was just 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, do we have other board members that are not here?
One.
Okay, you'll just have to speak to the mic, thank you.
I'm sorry. We have one board member. We submitted a letter. The young lady who's on our board is a part of the Greene County High School, and they're doing the ACT today, and she was required to be in school prior to this meeting being scheduled.
Okay. Okay, so we want to talk about the numbers. The start number is extremely ambitious. What else do we want to dig into here?
Well, again, 5-member board, 4 of them are out of the county. There's only 1 board member that lives in Wayne County.
Which board member lives in Wayne County? That's you? Okay.
Oh, you live in Wayne County too?
She just moved.
Oh, he just,
You're not out of state.
so you were the out of state now.
Yeah, you moved into Wayne County. I think you told us you were moving in during clarification.
Dr. Todd is moving into Wayne County, so we will have 2 board members who are actually residents of that. I am a lifetime resident of Wayne County. Was raised there and went to school there, and just recently my wife's mother passed and left her house in Sampson County, and so we decided to move there in that situation. But we were originally from Wayne County, and at the present time we're living where I sit.
I think my biggest concerns, again, we've kind of got the Wayne Prep connection here with the Bentons, and then this kind of interplay between Mr. Benton, the Ronis, and Forget, and Academic Plus, and how that's going to work out. I mean, from what I could tell, it looks like that when Benton goes to be principal, bring Ronis in, and then Forget will work to bring Academic Plus in as a member of the board. And so, and Academic Plus is owned by the Bentons, and then Ronis is owned by Forget. And so I'm just trying to get how all that's going to work.
Well, that was part of the quid pro quo of the evaluation, I think. I was very much disturbed by that and the comments that were made. I feel like I am having to argue my reputation rather than discussing having a good charter school. Academics Plus was in business from 1989 until April of 2015. At that time, the business was closed as a tutorial program. We have been doing some consulting. Dr. Marilyn was never a part of Wayne Prep. I was the founding chairman, but she was never employed by Wayne Prep, so I would like for us to be aware of that. But Academics Plus exists now strictly from our home and some work with consulting, but other than that, that would be all that we would do. We know Dr. Todd Fagette from Academics, through Wayne Prep. I employed him with the board to be the CEO of that school. He has since, after a couple of years ago, he resigned from that position and again began to work for his own business, self-employed. Ronnie's System is a good company from what I understand. And again, if we have any contracts with that system, you know the state and requirements is 2 to 3 bids, and we would have to go with the best company. And that would be what I would stand as a chairman of the board until I might go off. But right now, I'm not defending my reputation because we are above board. We always have been, and we will continue to be so. So I don't want to cast a shadow on our application due to our connection with a school that is very successful now. You just gave them a 10-year charter, 600, almost 700 kids, and I think that our legacy there from the beginning to now shows the groundwork we laid while we were there.
I'll ask you the same question I'd ask of the folks from Griffin. What did you learn from Wayne Prep and kind of the issue with the building and the bond structure where it was kind of tied in together with Thunderbird? What did you learn from that, and how could you, take that you learned and apply it to Wayne, to Leadership Academy of Wayne?
Be aware of wolves in sheep's clothing. That's what I come to you with. I was called by the founder of that particular school, Wayne Prep, which had tried to get a charter under the name of Jefferson Prep the year before. I was not aware of that when the founder of the school called me and asked me if I'd be interested in being chair of Wayne Prep. And of course I responded yes, because we'd been in business about 25 years or so at that time in Goldsboro, North Carolina. I'd tested hundreds, if not thousands, of children and realized how low the grade levels were, and children were below grade level. When I was called to be chairman, I gladly accepted and soon realized that there was a company being brought in that was a management company, which was not an EMO, but was going to be a management company, and that was a part of the founder's recommendations. Not knowing any better than that, we went with that, and again, we found out later that we were tied into some other schools that particular company had on board. What we found, we understood what they were up to and what they were doing. By October or November of that, and I spent the rest of my term, if you will, trying to jettison that company from Wayne Prep.
So your plan now is to build a building, right? That's your option A is to build a building for Leadership Academy of Wayne.
Yes, we have. If you've been to the southern part of Wayne County, it's a rural area. It's highly rural. First of all, since we talked to you in our other meeting with you, you gave us some good ideas, and I talked with Bill Bryan, who owns Mount Olive Pickle Company in Mount Olive. That's around the area we're going to be in, hopefully. And I asked Bill, I said, do you have any warehouses that might be available? He's buying up warehouses. He's not selling any. And so we've looked and we found a couple of buildings. One is 47,000 square feet, and the other one's 33,000 square feet that are on the market or possibly could be leased. So that's a possibility of doing something like that. But there being a lot of buildings that could be refurbished into a school or limited in that particular area. So we will look at refurbishing something, but it's my thinking that we're probably going to have to put a building up.
Do you know which organization you're going to work with to try to build something if you end up building?
Well, in our application, we dealt with the company, or we've talked with the company. We haven't signed any papers. All we've done is talk.
Right.
There's I forgot the exact initials, GPB Builders. out of Raleigh, North Carolina. They have built charter schools. I think there are home companies in Detroit. And then we talked with a company named Highmark out of Iowa, I think is where they're from. And they help build schools and with financing and so forth. So we've had those inroads with those folks, but nothing's been established as far as doing something, as far as signing any agreements.
So as far as the financing of it goes, you would do that with either Highmark or GPP, I think you said?
Yes.
So
yeah.
you would work with them on the financing side of it as well?
Yes.
Would you think it would be bonds or some sort of traditional bank financing? Or?
Well, it usually goes I found out it went two steps. Back in February of a year ago now, we met with BB&T, their representative that does charter schools. BB&T has a section that does nothing but charter school financing. But they won't take a charter school on until about the second or third year. You got to prove yourself. Highmark, I'm just using them as an example, will take you as a novice school and help finance it. And then if you talk with BB&T, then they go into a bond situation with them. That's my understanding.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's, just for clarification, you would be the principal, Mr. Benton? Are you Dr. Benton?
I'm Dr. Benton. I'm a 79 graduate of Duke.
What's that?
I
didn't.
Duke.
I probably lost some votes right there, but anyway.
Yeah, I'm gonna turn around on you now.
So you would be the principal?
Yes.
Okay.
As right now, the way it's scheduled, I would be.
Okay. So let's talk about just the enrollment. Very aggressive enrollment pattern and plan, making up 16% of the county, 522 students in year one.
Let me just make one note there. On last meeting we told you that we had a typo in our application. It's 6% of the population, not 16.
Okay.
And I'm going to let Dr. Maryland tell you about that.
Said 6.
We agree with the assessment of the evaluator. We have a very aggressive enrollment number. I remember in our conversations about our prospects for students as far as establishing those numbers and thinking that's a lot of children. And so in pondering that number, a couple of factors come into play. One, if you look at the map and if you divide Wayne County in half, that southern end is the area that we are looking to locate. The southern end is identified as a rural area. The Neuse River basically is what divides the county between the north and the south. In the north end, of course, is the city of Goldsboro. In the south end, your largest town is Mount Olive. And outside of that, you have communities which have been present for a very long time in our area. One of the things that we know about the southern end of the county is there is no option at all for children and their families except public school. Certainly that's not a bad thing. I'm a product of the public schools, have taught in the public schools, and certainly am happy they're there. However, in a time when we do believe in choice and options for families, we see the need for the southern end to have an option. And right now, we know from conversations with local members of the community and just families in general, we know that many families have to drive into Goldsboro, meaning they cross the Neuse River, where there we have 4 very successful private schools, one of those being a Catholic school that's been there forever, and they enjoy a full house. Another is 2 other Christian schools which enjoy full enrollment, as well as a 4th private school that has strong enrollment. And so we know that those schools draw from all parts of the county. Families drive in, and if you calculate the distance for some of that, that could be up to 30 miles of travel if they're coming from the furthest part of the southern end of the county in order to have an option outside of the public schools. Our bordering counties on the south end, we have Sampson County, and we have Duplin County, and we also have Lenoir County. Duplin at this time does not have a charter option or choice option, as Sampson does not either. And Lenoir does have a very successful private school, but of course that is more into the Kinston area, so it's a little bit further distance from us. So we know that the number that we are posing is a strong number. We recognize that, and as people who have been in the school business a long time, our business, our primary business, has been in operation in Goldsboro for over 25 years. And we did do private work with many, many families, and many of those families drove from that southern end to be able to bring their children to us to get support, after-school support. And with that said, we have a lot of confidence that there are many families who today, if they had a choice closer to where they actually reside, they would consider that. We have a very aggressive marketing plan that we believe will draw attention to our school. Having had some experience with this, we know that marketing is extremely important. In our community, there are 3 big events that occur in the spring of the year. One is the Mount Olive Pickle Festival, which occurs in March. I think they've moved it up a little bit. It occurs in March. And if I'm not mistaken, when we recently just spoke with the chamber president there, who we've known for a long time. She is not anyone new to us, but we revisited her just recently. We visited her last year when we were considering this option, and I think they are anticipating well over 10,000 people to invade that small community. But when they come looking at the vendors, they walk the streets. It is a grand time to engage families with what we're having to offer, and we know that we will choose to be a part of that. The other big event in our community that occurs in April every year is called Pig in the Park. Again, that is held in the southern end of our county. It is a big draw where they cook pigs and sell barbecue and vote on who does the best job. But again, they seek vendors to set up and be present to promote whatever it is they're promoting, and certainly we would choose to be a part of that. And then, of course, the third big event in our community is the air show, which is held at the base in Goldsboro and draws just thousands and thousands of people. If you haven't been there when the air show is going on, make sure you get an alternate route because traffic is very difficult to maneuver. So we do have that piece of our plan, and we're very solid on that. We know that that will bring a lot of attention to us, and at the point in time when we actually choose to engage in those things, it'll be at the time when parents will begin to make a lot of decisions about where their children are going to go. You know, we also, and this goes back to addressing the number because it is an aggressive number, and anytime you put out a document as we have, you really have to evaluate yourself and what you're doing and hoping and praying that you can deliver on what you promise to people. But we did do a Facebook social media presence when this, back in the spring of last year, and ran that for about 3 months just to see what kind of attention we might get, and we were overwhelmed by the response that we had. In fact, what started to happen, and it made us very concerned, people started calling us and wanting to know if they could have jobs. They began to tell us who we needed to hire and when could they get their children enrolled. And so, of course, being the cautiously optimistic people that we are, we made sure that they understood that we had to be approved first. It was a process. It would take 2 years for that to occur. And so the number is high, but I will tell you the need is very great in that end of the county, particularly our schools. When you run the numbers on the in-grade test data, and you look at those numbers, and again, our data for this project was 2016-17 report card grades. And when I look at those numbers and I realize that almost half of our children are scoring level 1 and level 2 on the EOG, That
So-
frightens me.
So let's kind of stay on that for a second, because you talked a little bit about private schools and whatnot, and I want to get clear on, what is the population that you're targeting, and are you expecting a high free lunch population?
Well, yes, we do. In that particular end of the county, we know that there is a large free or reduced lunch population, but actually we realize that that's pretty much a standard for the county.
So if you had to guesstimate a number, what would it be?
Well, we're rated, I think, 75 to 98%, somewhere in that area.
That's what you're expecting at your school?
Yes, sir.
Okay, because there's parts of the plan that don't, like the transportation plan
there's no
doesn't reflect that priority.
Yes,
And so when you're saying, I'm gonna have 540 students, and then I'm gonna, and we're most of them,
dropped off.
almost all of them are gonna be free and reduced lunch, but in fact, it seems like providing transportation is like the last component, and there's only $60,000 budgeted for maybe 90,000 for 500. If we figure 80%, in a rural county, that's less than half of what it would cost.
Yes, and we are aware that transportation is a concern. And I'm going to tell you what I have experienced. And I have worked in part of our business career serving after-school programs with students in rural counties in our state. And in most of those rural counties, and I won't name the counties, but most of the rural counties, none of the rural counties, as a matter of fact, provided transportation for those after-school programs. But they expected me as a vendor to come in and have high enrollment and serve their students, and then their parents pick up their children. And what I was always amazed at is how high a participation rate we had and how many parents came and picked up their children every afternoon. And it was always a wonderful experience for me to stand out, greet families as they picked up their child, and I call it that time to check the temperature of our work, because it was my time to actually meet with a parent. And so while we know that there are families, and we have established in our application process, getting to know our families, that they will have to declare how we're going to get our children to school. And if transportation is a need, then certainly we want to make sure that there's a plan in place.
But there's not a plan in place.
Well, we have investigated the local transportation service, and I know that sounds a little far-fetched, especially living in a rural area. But we have investigated that option, and they do create drop points or pickup points, and we would be willing to investigate that option with our families.
So
We
for
have-
like second graders to ride a local bus?
Not by themselves. We would provide someone to be that chaperone. We would have to provide a chaperone, and that would be someone from our staff that would be designated for that, and we would make sure that we had the backup plans in place. And even with that plan, sir, parents would be able to ride because it's set up as a local service. Unlike a contracted service, we have awareness of a contracted service as well that can do pickup spots, so we would designate the areas and parents would come to those areas.
I just think that, it would seem that, and I mean, you've been in the work, so you understand,
Yes,
particularly in a rural and a poor community, we're talking about 75 to 90. You said 75 to 98%, it says in the application, that's the percent of the targeted market.
400 students.
400 students, like, to get 500 students that are low income, you just have to be able to say, yes, we provide bus transportation. Am I wrong in a rural community? Is that?
Not from my experience. Over 80% of our kids ride the bus, and if we didn't provide transportation,
We
they
probably
wouldn't be
have
there.
90% that
Yeah.
ride the bus.
And I just, to have that as a barrier, just, I don't know, it just, those two things are really, there's just a dissonance there, a disconnection.
Well, also with the lunch, it's a vendor for breakfast and lunch.
Are you going to participate in the free and reduced lunch program?
I'm sorry?
Are you going to participate in the free and reduced lunch? Okay.
Yes, it is our plan to do that, yes.
I think with the after-school pickup point too is, I have a lot of parents that can pick their kids up for after track practice or
That's
whatever.
exactly
They
what I
just
was
can't
gonna
pick
say.
them up at 3 o'clock in the afternoon when
That's exactly
I
what I was gonna
imagine school is going to end, because Okay, and on, just kind of tied to that, you know, we have $60,000 in transportation, we have $160,000 in curriculum and tax. I'm assuming, walk me through kind of, you know, if we're projecting 500 students, it's going to cost a lot of money. So we're going to be spending money on the DI materials, or which materials are going to be so expensive for which programs?
Yes. I'm going to defer that to Dr. Todd, our finance guy, but yes,
Okay.
that is correct.
Yes, you're correct. The curriculum instruction budgeted includes all of the reading mastery signatures, reading and language arts strand, which is the writing. It includes the core knowledge, language, and listening program, as well as connecting math concepts and science fusion for a science curriculum identified as well.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I was just, those two numbers were kind of near each other in the budget, so I thought I would ask.
Yes, sir.
That makes sense. Those are expensive programs to get off the ground. Okay, so.
Could I speak to the transportation issue again?
Sure.
We learned a lot from our clarification interview, and when we left here, I was a school principal for 20 years, and I know about busing. I was in a rural part of the county, so we understand having transportation for children. Believe me, we do. When we left you, we had, I think, a quote, a broad plan, but when we looked at locally, there is the bus system, the county bus system, and then there's also a private transportation group that we talked to about doing routes for us. We also called Carolina Thompson Carolina Bus Company out of Greensboro and got prices on, quote, a new bus is what it would cost. And so we do have a plan of getting transportation to the children. We just, if we didn't formalize in the application, we need to give that word to you now that we have looked into it deeply, I think, in terms of buying a bus. And of course, we would probably look locally to see if there were any buses within the school systems that were for sale. We understand that. So transportation is not something we just kind of put on the left-hand side. We very well understand that children in high poverty levels may need transportation. However, also, if you are on the Mount Olive Highway, which is 117, going into Goldsboro, it's like everybody from that area coming to Raleigh every morning. 117 is packed almost as much as 40 people driving. So there's plenty, when I say there's plenty of transportation, there are a lot of cars in that area. But we understand the fact that we would probably have to, provide transportation, and when we do intakes with the parents, that's when we would find out what we would need to do as we make further plans.
Okay. Shifting gears a little bit and kind of going back to the, you know, I want to get a little bit more into the instructional program, and I'm just going here. If others feel free to jump in. I think we had some questions about staff development too, but just starting with the mission, could someone kind of explain, develop within every child educational leadership skills that impact the individual, transform community, and outlast personal experience, leading all the way? Can you kind of describe that for us, what that means?
For us, outlasting a personal experience is a legacy. That's a single word for it. But when we think about children and learning, we think about our community, we think about their needs, and we think about them having an opportunity to really become proficient in their reading and math skills. And I guess I'm very passionate about that because I know how important it is that children be able to read and do math at a very high level. All of the rest of their career, basically their school life, their career, their future really hinges on that. And so our mission as we attempt to move into this Leadership Academy of Wayne is to establish an environment where children are taught to be proficient and become proficient in their basic skills. Also, in that process, they will be introduced and included into the plan is developing leadership. And when we think about leadership, a lot of times we think about some kind of a hierarchy. For us, leadership begins with self. We have to become leaders of ourselves. We have to learn how to manage ourselves, manage our personal behavior, and therefore it becomes an outgrowth to how we deal with other people. And our goal as we look at this school is that when our students leave there in 8th grade, that they take what they've gained from us at a very proficient level, and they're able to move to that next level of schooling, whether it be a public school, private school, virtual school, homeschool, whatever their choice may be, that they take with them what they've gained from us, and all of a sudden it begins to be transcended into that new community. And with that, we are hoping and believing that we're going to be able to make a difference in the community where we live with that.
Can I ask you a question? What goals are you using to measure the leadership aspect of the school?
You know, that's a great question, and that was asked in our clarification document. And when I went back and I looked, and I thought, wow, I guess we didn't include that there. But I think as we progress along, certainly goals will be added. However, I think one of the first indicators of leadership begins with when we really begin to look at those first academic scores coming in and how our students are doing, because again, when I can be responsible for myself, when I'm responsible for myself, if I can help a student learn to be responsible for themselves, it certainly enables other processes to be affected in a positive way. And so certainly I think the initial reading on that's going to come with achievement scores. And that data, of course, being collected continuously would be a reader for the school as they're on site working.
Ms. Benton, you seem to be very, very knowledgeable about the school, but your husband is going to become the school director. Are you going to stay on the board once that happens?
You know, that's another great question. And as of right now, the document indicates that it is his intent to apply for the CEO position. But you know, that's another year plus out. And that's what we think might happen, but we're not sure of that. As far as my role at that point, again, one thing I know is that all things seem to work out as they need to. We are not here to create a conflict, and that's not going to happen. So we know that there are set procedures in place that have to take place as far as conflict of interest, and we're going to certainly abide by that and seek counsel for that to make sure that we are in a good position. But if necessary, then certainly I can step away. But right now, we're not sure. We certainly will seek any input on that to make sure we make a good choice and a good plan.
I mean, I think you know, this is on the government. I want to stay in the ed plan, but just a comment on the governance side. I feel like we're having a similar issue, right, where we have, you know, a seasoned and potentially very effective school leader. It seems like that's the case in both situations, which is good. But then, you know, between, you know, conflict that was just brought up or potential thereof and potential withdrawal, Ms. Benton leaving the board, also with the treasurer potentially leaving the board due to, you know, where that contract secured of the people in the room, we would then have the principal left and one board member. I think that's just concerning to me. If Dr. Benton could come up and tell us a little bit about walk us through a day in a classroom around the components of direct instruction, competency-based learning, mastery learning, those types of things. Can you kind of help us see the vision of the school from kind of an instructional standpoint?
I appreciate you asking me. I'm going to refer this to Diane James, if you will. Diane?
Don't you? I'd like you to answer as the principal, since you're the one that would potentially be the principal, right?
Yes. Yes.
Help us. Yeah, I think you know that this is obviously a big part of your vision. So, could you kind of tell us a little bit more about, you know, the direct instruction model and Teach Like a Champion, things like that?
The idea of our school would be to take in our kids about 8 o'clock. They would go into a regular classroom, a homeroom, if you will. And at that time, the administrative things need to be done, and then we will have, I think if you notice from our schedule, we'll have about 20 minutes of leadership training. Then we'll break into reading and math, and the idea of the MTSS model of tiering the kids out in homogeneous groups in reading and math, and then that will go and switching back and forth, having different teachers, having teachers who would be proficient in those two areas. Once that's done, then
with the classes, are you with the direct instruction kind of this model? Is that blocking in the lower grades? Do you
using that term, yes.
Okay.
Using the term blocking, but they're homogeneously grouping in the sense of the grade levels of where children appear on their testing, and so they would be blocked in that particular way.
So how many for example, how many first grade teachers, how many second?
Well, we're just on a round number.
We're
looking at about four teachers
at each grade level.
Yes, yes.
And would they would each teach a subject, or would they be self-contained?
Well, that's the plan, is that they would be blocked off in terms of reading and math.
One would teach reading.
Right.
One, okay.
Unless, again, if that proves to be the way to do it in terms of the students that we have. But that's our plan right now, yes, sir.
Okay. You mentioned the leadership piece at the beginning of the day. What does that look like? What is that about?
Okay. All right. We have mentioned that we're using the Covey and the effective leaders of impact of leaders. I'll get in a minute. That basically, as Dr. Marilyn has said, working on self, making sure that students are ready with things, the rules of the school, rules of individual rules, how they discipline themselves, the discipline of the school, the idea of being grateful to one another, to being polite to one another, understanding individual rights, and dealing with other people. So these are the kind of things that I see in terms of being in leadership skills.
And there's a lot of, I think, Sherry, how much was in staff development?
$440,000 over 5 years.
Okay, so a little bit less than $100,000 a year. What would the bulk of that be going to from a development standpoint, staff development?
I think a big part of that is going to be training teachers. I saw something on, I think it was Facebook last night, that said this, that asking a teacher to teach from a written script is like asking an artist to paint a picture without paint. I disagree with that. I think teaching has gotten to the point where it can be more scientific than an art. And so I think the idea of training teachers to follow the program that we're going to be using is that's going to be a task, and I think we're going to have to do a lot of training with teachers to move in the direction that we'd like to see the school go.
So do you have out of the kind of specific core instructional frameworks or methods that you cited, which ones do you think are going to require the most training, or what will the investment?
I think the investment would be in teaching teachers how to do direct instruction and bringing folks in to train them to do it, even visiting in the classrooms to do it and show them, in other words, a demonstration of it. And so I think we've put like 10 work days in front of the school year to begin that process. I think right now in my mind, that's going to be one of the most difficult things to do. Let's pray that it's not.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, Dr. Benton, I know this area is very heavily populated with Hispanic.
Yes, ma'am.
So I would anticipate that your English learner population would be extraordinarily high, but I don't see that particular group targeted other than just we're doing MTSS differentiation. How are you going to specifically meet the needs of that population, which is going to probably be very high?
And I agree with you on that. I think it will be extremely high if you've been in that area.
Oh, I know that area.
Well, good. And what we found in working with those students over the years, that it's the parents who have the problem with English, not so much the students. But we also have discussed the idea of being sure, I think the second year, if not the first year, to have someone on staff that could work with that group. Also, as we do our hiring, we'll be looking strongly at bilingual teachers, so that basically they're helping parents when they come into the school. I also want to tell you one of my concerns is there's a large Haitian community there that we just found out about. And so we've got a multiplicity of things that we're probably going to have to deal with. And I think with the experience we've had in the public schools and in the charter school business, that we know in dealing with having the right teachers there to take care of the concerns that come up with both the students and with parents.
Okay. We're at 18 minutes remaining, about give or take a couple minutes. Other questions before we kind of discuss among ourselves, and then obviously we can ask some more if we have the balance of time. I just want to make sure that we're reserving some time for us to discuss. Yeah,
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. Back to the enrollment numbers. And again, I think as we said, well, they are quite large for a rural area. And you mentioned you'd done outreach via Facebook and where you're counting clicks. But have you actually done community meetings? Have you actually had surveys that parents filled out? Because getting parents to come to a community meeting is a different level of interest and commitment than just responding to a Facebook post.
A couple of things on that. With my experience, two experiences I've had. I have done community meetings for charter schools. They were very, very low turnouts. Also, the promises that we've got in the original charter school that we worked at, we had over 500 people. The promises that they would come, or say they would. I think 280 or 290 showed up. So in knowing this, my tangent on looking at this was to go to community leaders and talk to them. The first person I talked to was a former chairman of the county commissioners who agreed that we needed a school in the area. The second person I talked to was a present county commissioner, and he said, Ken, if you build a school, we won't have to. The crowdedness in that, the overcrowdedness in those schools calls for another school to be in that area. Let me just put it this way. As the Declaration of Independence says, it's self-evident. With the crowdedness in the school, the scores, the poverty in the area, someone needs to go and change something that hasn't been changed in over 30 years.
I believe your application, Dr. Benton, stated that you did approach a couple prominent Wayne County members. You interviewed them for the board, but neither of them were willing to commit to the board?
That's true, yes, ma'am.
Why?
Well, when we told them about the work we had to do, this is the group that we talked with. One was a lawyer, one was a real estate lady who owned a real estate company. And the question was, what's our responsibility? And we worked sometimes day and night on this application, as you well know. And it was like, come back when you've got something that you can show us. So that was the response that we got. We're not interested. We just don't have the time to do the legwork on that.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions right now? We can obviously have Dr. Benton come back up should we need to while we're discussing. We have about 15 minutes remaining. Thoughts on this application?
My biggest concern is the numbers and what evidence they've supplied in the application with that one appendix that pointed to Facebook back in June. I just, show us that there's the interest. I don't see it in the application, and that's such a big part of what they're trying to do, get those numbers. Very concerning with the numbers.
Because the numbers are so high, I'd really want to see something that suggested a firmer commitment than a Facebook post. Or even the fact that the county commission thinks it's a good idea, but they're not actually supplying children. And 522 kids is a lot of kids.
Well, this area is very rural. So I think, for me personally, I think the operational piece is underdeveloped. Facility, there's not gonna be an empty warehouse in this area. Busing, transportation, even, it doesn't have to be necessarily for, students of need. Children in general in this area need a ride to school. I know, I'm from a county that we run 13 buses for 550 kids. So, I mean,
It's a big undertaking to get started too. even if-
And I'm looking at their Facebook now, and they have 50 people who follow them and are averaging like 10 likes per update. So I know we've talked about the Facebook page, but I appreciate some of the posts are also in Spanish, which is great. But I was looking at the poll from June, excuse me, and on Facebook it says there was one vote. So 100% said they wanted to attend the school, but it says one person voted. So I'm also worried about if that's the emphasis they're using for recruitment, that's 50 people.
And I don't discount the relationships that in the track record that the Bentons have in Wayne County with Wayne Prep. So I think that's kind of an intangible factor that would play pretty significantly. I just think that the charter the application needs more development. I think I'm nervous about the number. I think I'd be less nervous if the transportation plan was really well scoped, as well as a free lunch plan. That would make me feel a lot better. I also think on the governance side, just going back to, who is the board that we're giving the charter to? And I know that boards can change over the 2-year period, but by and large, we want to see a full board by the time you come to this meeting, or, when you submit the application that's invested. And if people aren't ready to, to do the work, that might mean that the charter's not, we're not ready to have it yet. And another year will give time to secure a couple more people that will, we can be sure of, should we end up contracting with someone on the board, or in hiring someone on the board and someone else has to roll off, that we actually have a board that remains. I feel like that's important and notable for boards to come before us with, 5 people and 2 to 3 are kind of either going to work for a contract with the school. Well, that's a concern. I just think that that makes it harder for us to give a charter, because I think we can see a path where we're chartering to 2 people, and not I think part of the benefit of having 5+ people is you have diversity of experience, backgrounds, race, whatever it is, and those people are collectively able to hold a group accountable, or hold the chief administrators accountable.
I too am concerned about the numbers and reaching that in this rural area. Also, I'm glad you spoke about the ELL population, and we know that that's going to be a high population in the school, possibly. But there was no reflection of that in the budget with the ELL teacher, and I think that would be good to have that reflected in the budget. But again, I like your education plan. I think that's great. And there's a need.
I guess I'm going to echo some of the sentiment. I'm really torn, because I think that the experience that the Bentons bring to bear in their professional careers, and the work of Mr. Forget and others is strong. And I don't want to discount that. I think that's why I'm torn, because I'm torn between that and these numbers are high, and in a rural area, and you know, my experience, with the utmost respect to the comment Mr. Benton made, my experience is very different. I've done community meetings in rural districts for a school in Pitt in a growing area in Western Wake, and if the fire marshals would have shown up, they would have told us to tell people to go away. And I'm not saying that I'm right and they're wrong. I'm just saying that you didn't even make that attempt. So I don't know how valid these numbers are. I don't think just talking to a county commissioner generates 200 enrollments. My experience is it doesn't. It generates a lot of, we welcome you, we want you here, but go do the work. And so I'm really torn. And as Chairman Quigley stated, I think correctly too, I'm torn because in my mind, to be consistent in how I vote and look at these charters, the question comes up, who are we giving the charter to? And potentially 2 of the board members that are before us today won't be on the board. And I know we can't presume that Mr. Benton will be the CEO. I know there's a whole process there, but that's where I'm torn, because I think they would make great board members, and I think he'd make a great CEO if the school was granted. So.
All right. Okay, any further discussion? All right. Ready to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we not move Leadership Academy of Wayne forward.
I'll second that.
Okay. Second, properly moved and second. Any further discussion on the motion?
I hope you'll come back again. Again, like I said, the need is great. And I too am torn. Struggling.
Can I speak while the motion's on the floor?
Sure.
I've never been criticized for being too aggressive. We also, in our appendix, sent you a budget recently for 375 kids in case we didn't make our numbers. We're prepared if the numbers are not there at that number. So we've already sent you a budget showing that if we went down to 70% of our students. The transportation piece is an ongoing thing. I said that I had been a school principal and I realized the importance of transportation. We know that's something that we might have to work on. It's not like we won't leave kids staying at home and not able to come to school because of lack of a ride. We have researched that. We've talked to different people about it. We've talked to the local people. We've talked about purchasing a bus. We've talked about all those things. I don't know if I could, in terms of just bringing something together that would be a plan. I can't bring routes because I don't know where the children are going to be living. I can't bring you time schedules because I'm not quite sure what time they'll be picked up. But I can tell you this, that I have been an advocate for children for over 50 years. And most of them in the last 25 years have been low income, your Hispanic students, if you will. And I think to deny us a charter based on a number, and also the basic evaluation of the last evaluator, is wrong. Because that's the point you're going to. You were tied to Wayne Prep. You are tied to one another. We're friends. We are intelligent people. We came together to charter an excellence charter school. We understand the mistakes that we made in the past, and we don't expect to do those again. But to deny us charter because of numbers, when we've already gone back and said, here's what we do if we don't get them, we have a plan.
This budget. Where is this budget? The 375 budget, where's that?
I'm sorry.
I would just say that,
I'm
I mean, I'm not, I don't want to,
Admit it?
I want to be really clear that I'm voting no for this application, not based on simply the number. I think on a comprehensive, external evaluators, I don't care about Wayne Prep. I'm not thinking about that. I don't think this application is ready. I don't feel like the board, that I have a deep respect for your work and the impact, and I think it's a big deal to open a charter school that is successful. I think that you know, they say the greatest evidence of a good leader is the leader leaves and the organization continues to thrive. So I think, you know, that speaks volumes of what you're able to do. And I just believe that the application and the board, comprehensively needs more work. So I don't want to boil it down. And this is I'm speaking personally. You know, the curriculum map is basically a photocopy of Reading Mastery. I think that the mission could require more clarity. I think that we could have a lot more detail on how the professional development is going to be scoped. I think there's a variety of things. I could go into more detail. I think that if we're talking about transporting kids, and you're saying now that you have experience and you're going to do that, I don't want bus routes. I want to see that live financially and in writing in the budget. So I think that what we're saying is this needs some more work, and we need some more board members that represent Wayne County, and come back again, and this will be a much stronger application. So I don't even know the external evaluator's comment that you're speaking of. I'm not thinking about that. I'm looking at the application and the board that I see before us today.
I'll jump in if I may as well. The newest member of CSAB, I learned more today about this other school than I ever even knew, and it's not even pertinent to how I'm feeling about this application at all. External evaluation is news to me, has no bearing whatsoever on my thoughts. And I think that the challenge is that we have to vote on the application that's in front of us, not an application that, well, Mr. Friend, if you're concerned about the numbers, we'll drop the numbers. But that's not the application that's in front of us, and that's what we have to vote on, which is why I'm torn. Yeah.
Okay, so it's been properly moved and seconded. I'm going to call the question on the motion.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I'm not going to support this motion. I'm not going to support it because I don't think there's anybody here whose school, Sugar Creek or Union or Arapahoe, or especially the KIPP schools, or even Healthy Start, could meet the level of rigor that you all are foisting on these applications. I think we've lost our way here. Our mission isn't to work to ensure the non-existence of quality charter schools. It's to work for the existence of quality charter schools. And none of our applications were perfect. I don't know that any of us here have A schools. And if we're sitting here with B and C schools, and we're passing judgment on these new applications, some of which are flawed or some need to be worked on a little bit, I think we're way off the mark. And I would hope that we reconsider this existential issue here of working to ensure the existence, not the non-existence of schools. We're 0 for 3 already. It's yesterday and today. This is going to be 0 for 4 on recommending.
We have 12 schools that we've approved, which is actually...
I'm talking about yesterday and today.
But it's not based on days,
How
Alan.
many
It's
we
not
do in
listed-
any one day? It's
We're not
based
talking
on.
about one day. We're
Anyway,
actually tracking above.
I have an issue. I'm not voting for this motion. I stand opposed to it. I think you're being pedantic. You're being Pharisaic. You're really not doing our state a service when the need is so great. You've got a pretty good school here, a good board. I think, again, they need opportunity, and we're not providing opportunity. We're being, I don't know where this standard is coming from, because I don't see too many schools here that would have met this standard if they were applying today with this particular board.
Alan, I'll respond to that. I have great respect for what you're saying. Tremendous respect for what you're saying, but I'll speak for myself, and I think I think the schools that I've been a part could meet this standard because we, again, I'm speaking of my school. I came before this group and said, this is how many students that we think we're going to enroll, and I had evidence from parents that could show and provide some level of assurance that our numbers were solid, not just Facebook hits and I spoke to a commissioner. We actually had parents assemble, and the board I brought before, whether it was 5 or 7 members, was the board that this CSAB and the state board was giving the charter to. Can there be turnover? Sure. So as much as I respect what you're saying, I think that, I'm speaking for myself, that I don't think I'm holding them to a different standard. As I've said, I think there's a lot in here I like, but I need to know who I'm giving the charter to. I need to have assurance that in a very rural community, again, since you personalized it and said our school, we opened with 409 students in one of the fastest growing communities in the United States. Forget Wake County in North Carolina. They're trying to do this with 522, and there's not that base population. So that's how I would respond to that. I understand what you're saying, but I don't think it's a different standard.
Well, I also would say that the application and the process has become more rigorous over time. That's natural. I mean, the schools that applied in 1997, we are creating something brand new. I mean, it is more rigorous. Like, the bar should be higher. We have 187 schools.
Why don't we just go for perfection? Then we could have a 0 recommendation rate to the state board of education.
We're not talking about perfection. We have to, I mean, even your point about, this is a good board. We just talked about this. We don't even know who the board potentially could be. There's only one person there that doesn't have a potential exit opportunity in the very near future off this board. Literally one board member who we haven't heard hardly anything from. Now, we didn't have her talk because, she shared a little bit, but but I mean, we can't have a school board of one person.
Well, I know we've had some boards that have been very large, and they seem to have been very enthusiastic and committed, and a year or two later, they've evaporated. I think a school in West Charlotte, out by the airport, that's only a couple of years old. So who knows what's going to happen in the near future? I mean, they've admitted their plans aren't etched in stone, and we can't guarantee anything. I can't guarantee anything at the schools I'm connected with.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, this is kind of an existential discussion about why even have an application at that point.
Future no one can know.
Yeah, I mean, okay, I'm going to call to question on the motion. All in favor of the motion? All opposed?
I'm not in favor. I didn't raise my hand fast enough.
Oh, okay. So let's do that again so we're clear. All in favor of the motion? Okay. All opposed? Okay. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, we're going to take a break. It is 11:12, so I think we probably worth taking a brief break. So we will do CE at 11:20, lunch at 12:20.
He's speaking in tongues.
Well, I can understand. There's some things in there that don't.
Making a difference.
This is why I'm not sure what this one's gonna be.
Is that the Wake County one?
The
CE Academy, is it Mecklenburg?
No, it's
Wait.
not. No, it's not. I don't think we have.
She and
All right. Dr. Allen, we're ready.
Oh, excuse me.
The applicant appearing before the board today is CE Academy. This interview will be led by Stephen Walker. They are proposing to locate in Wake County. Their proposed grade levels and projected student enrollment are as follows. Year 1, K through 4, 400 students. Year 2, K through 5, 465 students. Year 3, K through 6, 530 students. Year 4, K through 7, 595 students. Year 5, K through 8, 660 students. We did not have an LEA impact or due diligence completed for this application. Pass, fail ratings are as follows. Mission, purposes, and goals, 2 pass, 3 fail. Education plan, all pass. Governance and capacity, all pass. Operations, 4 pass, 1 fail. Finance, 4 pass, 1 fail. This applicant did not submit a special request. They are a repeat applicant. They previously received a clarification interview and they were not forwarded to the full interview stage. They did not receive third-party assistance and this application was deemed complete. You have 3 minutes to introduce yourselves and the members of your board.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Vice Chair Walker, esteemed members of the board. My name is Bryce Roberts. I'm Senior Marketing Manager at Oracle, and on the board I serve in the capacity of leading marketing and student acquisition.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Aaron. I'm Chao Xingxu. I'm a Vice Board Chair of CE. And currently, I operate a Chinese school and Chinese after school and preschool in Chapel Hill and Cary.
Why don't y'all just go ahead and line up, and then line up behind one another, and then y'all can go quicker.
And please speak up when you're at the mic.
Yeah, you have to speak up very loud.
Good
That
morning.
microphone is not very hot.
Good morning, I'm Dr. Chen Yulin. I have my specialty is second language education. I have also worked as a in Chinese language teacher preparation center in Maryland.
Hello, so my name is Yi Jiang. I have been a teacher for 10 years, 7 years in China and 3 years in the US. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Dr. Robert Koenig. Years ago, I was temporarily director of charter schools in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I have served as a principal, curriculum coordinator, and teacher at all 3 levels. I'm going to do whatever I can to help make this school a lighthouse for bilingual education.
Hello, I'm Jennifer Wadzik. I'm an English professor of the New Jersey Virtual Campus and an ESL instructor in the Brigham Young University Pathway Program. And I am advising on matters of English instruction, usage, and ESL interaction. Thanks.
All right,
morning.
I'm sorry. Last person, are you on the board? Or are you an advisor?
I'm an advisor.
The previous gentleman as well? Advisor. Okay.
So who's on?
Good morning, everyone. Yeah, this is Daniel Chen. I came to Duke in 2003 to get my PhD, and after that, I stay here. Right now, I'm working as a commercial broker in SVN HPW Commercial, and I'm serving as a board member in charge of the facility issue. Thanks.
Good morning, everyone. This is the CE Academy team. I'm Hurley Chu. I'm board chair. Thank you for having us here today. We appreciate your time and the consideration. Thank you.
All right, well, let's get started. We'll talk about the application a little bit, and anybody that wants to ask a question can ask it. I think my overall look at this application, I thought it was a fairly strong application. I noticed there'd been a lot that had been strengthened from the previous year. I do like the idea of the dual language, and I'm sure we're going to want to talk about that a little bit because that's the really innovative part of this application. Seemed like there were some questions around the goals that were presented, and maybe some of the mission that was there. On that mission, now it's just slowed past me. On the mission, and this kind of goes to the education plan too. The goals were kind of vague, and they were more a little bit about what you were expecting you would see rather than what you were aiming to get. And so, could somebody kind of address the goals and what is it that you're trying to strive for rather than what is it that you expect would happen? I thought if you looked at all the academic goals except for the Mandarin goal, they were kind of vague, but the Mandarin goal was very specific. So can you give us a little bit more specific as far as the other academic goals that you have?
For academic goal, we set up 75% of our students gonna pass the EOG test. Yes, we know the 75% is not very high, but I think we are in the first year, so we set up 75%. But we believe our kids gonna do better than 75%, and we're gonna rise it year by year until to 80%.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions about that?
May I move to
I have questions about the ad plan.
Yep.
Well,
let's
go back to the numbers first.
Yeah, the numbers.
Sure.
Numbers are high.
I just want to hear something about the plan for getting that. These are ambitious numbers, not, obviously Wake County is big, but there are a lot of schools already there, and this is a very specific mission. And so 400 kids in K-4 for a mission that specific is ambitious, and I just would like to hear something about what's your plan for finding that many kids, what kind of response have you had that makes you feel confident that you could do that?
Be happy to speak to the projected first-year enrollment and the growth in the numbers there. So I think for me, as someone who works in student acquisition or leads acquisition for sales and business, for me it boils down to three as it regards to CE Academy, three main factors here. We have a lot of macroeconomic factors in Wake County, which we're all familiar with in terms of growth, the growth in the demographics, the growth in young families, the growth in international young families, and the percentage especially of the Asian background. Of course, as is in our mission, this is going to be a learning environment open to all, but we feel that a lot of families will be predisposed to want a bilingual education, and a lot of those will be from Asian families, or they'll be living in the vicinity of other Asian families, and they'll be predisposed to want a more global type of education for their students. Also, as we know, the Wake County enrollment is sort of plateauing a bit as charter schools tend to soak up a lot of the new growth. And so there's just a lot of macroeconomic factors in our favor in this area of sort of Western Wake County, Central, Cary, Morrisville, Apex area. So that's all kind of the rising tide lifts all boats in that area. Secondly, we've put a lot of numbers behind what I call the demand generation practice. And so we're looking into the cost per acquisition of students, the type of marketing that we would do. Honestly, it's a lot of digital marketing. It would be a lot of even direct mail. But we've gone through the demographics of even down to like the zip code of 27519, having 50,000 families, 17,000 children, 6.4% of those Asian. Those would be 300 eligible students in the K1 through 4 demographic for the first year, and that's just one zip code alone, and just taking a very numbers-based approach to how we would generate that demand. But finally, and maybe more importantly, the third factor, just being the large team that we have here. So we have the commitment to the mission and to hitting our goals for this. We have the capacity, we have a lot of people, and honestly, it wouldn't really be so much about the budget as it would be about having the right tools to go to market with and to reach the students, to go out and to hold those community sessions, to work through our networks. And because we have such a diverse and wide-ranging board and a lot of committed people, we have that capacity to be able to do that. And we have the capability. We have people from a lot of different backgrounds. We have real estate agents. We have people in marketing, people in education. Our networks are pretty diverse. We all kind of met through one common person, but we all have our own networks. And we would have to just use a lot of sweat equity, to be honest, to go out and hit the streets. And I think this maybe wasn't asked right now, but may come out later, sort of why this number 400 and why the break-even point. This area, Western Wake County, kind of has a high floor for us. There's costs for facilities, costs for administrator that would be attractive for them to want to work here. We kind of had to have a higher break-even point, which for us is 388. We can't start with a school of 30 kids or 100 kids and have an administrator and pay a receptionist and pay all that. So just the nature of the environment we're working in is a double-edged sword. It has a lot of growth. It also has high costs, but I think those are going to work together for the number that we set out for. I hope that explained our mentality there.
The survey had 99 respondents. 63 said they would send children to the school. That's a far distance from 400. Have you updated that survey?
No, we've not had follow-on surveys, and that may be, I think, a little bit of a mix of a cultural thing of you get ready and you prepare and you have something tangible for people to see before you really go out to promote it. I'll be honest, I haven't spun up a website or a Facebook page for CE Academy because I really wanted to have something to show. I really wanted to push this forward, and so I don't have any doubt that if we had more meetings, this is just a few hundred parents or so, and like I said, this area has thousands and thousands of parents that we could be meeting with at free events or things that we host, and we could do further studies. We could have letters of intent ready. The demand is there. We have done a limited amount of things so far.
So are you primarily targeting the Asian population? Or I know you said it's open to all, but what do you anticipate the draw to be?
Right, the draw would be, if you look at style and the waiting list there, the draw would not just be from Asian families, but clearly that's kind of representative of our board and the background that we bring to the table, where we have Chinese language experience. That just happens to coincide with the networks that we have in Wake County. Those are the people that we reach out to, we're able to bring out to community events. It's open to all kinds of people, anyone interested in a bilingual Chinese education, and that transcends any race or orientation or background. And so we use tactics and marketing to identify those levels of interest, if that's affinities like martial arts clubs or restaurants that parents are taking their kids to get them a better cultural kind of background, special events like Dragon Boat Festival. And we'd have a very diverse kind of representative of Wake County type of population there to be able to market to.
So going further then, the majority of the educational piece says that the coursework, the core classes are going to be, with the exception of English, of course, are going to be taught in Mandarin as well as English. So in my mind, that requires a very specific staff. Do you foresee being able to recruit top teachers that are fluent in Mandarin enough to staff the school?
Absolutely, yeah. I can speak to that, but I can also defer. I know a lot of us have talked about the recruiting of the bilingual teachers.
Our curriculum, we said that for kindergarten to second grade, we teach 30% English and 70% Chinese, and we only English class and social study we teach in English, and other class we're gonna teach in Chinese. Yeah, and for the grade third grade to 8th grade we use 50% English and 50% Chinese, and we add science. So science in English.
I get that. So year one, you've got 5 grade levels, 400 students. How many classroom teachers are you expecting?
Okay, we expect to hire 19 co-teachers, co-subjects.
So how many of those 19 will be fluent in Mandarin?
Yes, all of them need to be fluent in Chinese.
So where are, she said all of them, 19. Where are we getting a pool of teachers?
Okay, so far I know we have about 9 Chinese school in RTP area. We have after school, we have 2 public school, one in Raleigh, one in Chapel Hill, and we have some Saturday Chinese schools. Totally, I think we have about 200 teachers, and some of them work part-time during after school or Saturday. So I think they are available to work at our school during daytime.
And they have North Carolina license to teach?
Yeah, some of them has license, and some of them we can train them to get the teacher license. Then there is a Chinese teacher program in NC State. They train licensed teacher, and after they finish the criteria, they can pass the practice test, and they can get the
Praxis, yes.
license.
So your teachers who are at these Saturday schools and after-school programs or whatever, would you anticipate that they have experience teaching the North Carolina Standard Course of Study? Some. Okay, so your group of 4th graders, approximately 80 4th graders coming in to CE the first year, they have no Chinese experience. How do you bring them up to speed so that moving forward they are right on track where you want them to be? I can understand, kindergartners, 1st graders, you're getting those kids young, you're going to move them up through the program, but you're looking at upper level kids, 3rd and 4th grade, so they've already missed 3 and 4 years of Chinese education. How do you?
Yeah. For this kind of student, we provide after-school program. So after they finish regular class, we have after-school program, and we provide free Chinese class for them to catch up.
Because in the ed plan, it specifically stated that you would suggest to parents to hire a tutor to catch the students up.
Yeah, tutor is one option, but not everyone need to do this because we have free class in after-school program.
Can I ask one quick follow-up? So you said you'll need 19 teachers year 1 who will teach Chinese. When you guys are full grown, what will that number be? The number of teachers that you need who will be bilingual once you're full grown?
Could you say again?
Yes, so if you need 19 teachers the first year who are bilingual, when your school's full grown into a K through 8, what's the projected number of teachers that you'll need who are bilingual at that point when you're full grown?
Okay, so if we cannot find enough teacher in local, we try to find out a teacher in China. And we know there are some agents, they train and recruit teachers in China, then we can work together to get the teacher to help us.
Hello, my name is Amy Yuan. Actually, I'm a STEL teacher right now in STEL. I've been in this immersion program for 5 years. Goes from kindergarten to 5th grade right now. So we got the experience to answer what your question about if the student come into 4th grade and they don't have any experience before, how we going to help them. So actually, we have the Chinese standards to helping them for the new student to come into 4th grade. So we started the Chinese for 4th grade. So you cannot compare like 4th grade student with the full immersion from 1st grade to a 4th grade student. So we just have the specific goal for them and the standard for them for Chinese, for this part of specific goal for them. And about how to find the professional teachers, actually I'm from the organization in Chapel Hill named the Participate. And actually I am actually the training teachers and helping them to find a lot of professional teachers in China. Actually, every year we have more than 15 Chinese teachers go from China, go to participate in this program, and we give all of the Chinese teacher high standard, and they are overqualified. So we don't worry about if we couldn't find any professional teacher in local. Of course, we want to help the local teacher to find a job, but we also have that extra plan B to help those teachers go through China, and those teachers can bring the very fresh Chinese teaching skills and knowledge to here, and those teachers work together can make our school and get our student better education. Thank you.
Well, you do realize that North Carolina requires 50% of, at least 50% to be certified.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask about the survey?
Yeah, I would like to ask too.
Yeah.
Along with those surveys, your prior application last year was only 50 per grade, and now you've ramped it up to 80 per grade, but I didn't see where there was more interest garnered over this period of time. So can you explain like the rationale and why you did that?
Yeah, I think I think a lot of it was to build out the structure. I mean, to be honest, we didn't hold lots of follow-up meetings, and as I'm getting up to speed with the process, and unfortunately I wasn't able to join in person last year, if the goal and what the learnings are that we're meant to bring more letters of intent or more kind of tangible aspects of demand, to be honest, that wasn't a massive effort. I think a lot of the emphasis over the last year was to really dive deep on the curriculum, on the operations, on the budget, on the structure of the school. We may not be doing a great job of showing the level of demand. We just all know it because it's our day-to-day lives in Wake County, going to intercultural events and meeting with people who give us interest and are constantly asking about our plans for the school and when is it going to be ready. We probably just need to do a better job putting that to paper and saying exactly how many like letters of intent or surveys or things like that. And in my profession, when you read the signals of the demographics and you have a good command of marketing tactics, it kind of gives you a level of confidence in the ability to be able to acquire the students that you're going to need to start out right.
It would have really strengthened this quite a bit if we had way more than 100 surveys.
Right.
I think you're right, but to see just 100 surveys out there in an area that seems to have great demand,
Right.
Really seems underwhelming.
That's totally fair. I think the rate is maybe what we should focus on. We didn't issue a ton of surveys, to be perfectly honest. But of the ones that we did, such a strong rate. Obviously, we didn't get 10% people to say yes, I will definitely send my kid fall of 2020 or 21 or whatever. But even just the massive rates of just interest that could then convert into people considering it, to then convert to letters of intent, and that waterfall seems pretty evident to us.
I'll follow up on that. I would agree with Mr. Mahoney's comment that 100 for what you're trying to get isn't a wildly impressive number.
Sure.
At the same, and I know there's work to be done on that. I guess I will say I'm just kind of comparing this to a school that we listened to yesterday. When I'm looking at the breakdown, I had asked the question of who took the surveys, and 100% of their surveys were from Chinese families, and this is actually quite opposite. And it looks like you've got a high percentage, a good cross section of demographics from the parent. So I guess this isn't a question, but just a comment. Like, yes, the school would be open to all.
Absolutely.
But who you promote it to can be something different.
That's right.
And you just keeping that in mind, that the goal would be to have it open to all and make sure all families and students are aware of the opportunity.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely our goal to make it open to all. We know that, for instance, the conversion rate or the level of interest is going to be higher in certain demographics that we're more familiar with. But go back to the example of Stow and the waiting list there, and just the intense interest for families of many backgrounds to do weekend schools at RICL, the Raleigh Academy, go to these cultural events that we see a very diverse population at. It's the demand is very evident to us. Thank you.
And I guess if I had a third grader or a fourth grader, and Chinese language is not native to us, they don't know anything about it.
Right.
I can see that as a very intimidating experience for a young student to walk into that type of situation, just as it is for a Chinese student or a Hispanic student to walk into other schools as well. But making sure that there's appropriate supports, and what I kind of heard you say was, not different expectations in terms of outcomes of what they produce, but maybe different expectations of what their language ability actually is.
And actually, I want to share the survey things about the marketing things. And because recently in Stow, I've been working in Stow for 5 years. Actually, I was very lucky because Stow was the only Chinese immersion school in Raleigh. So actually, I have to say, at the very first year, not everyone knows about Chinese immersion. A lot of people were thinking about, I just send the kids over there. Even some parents ask me, what the immersion looks like. So 1 year, the first year, we only have 15 students. But right now, after 5 years, almost every day I can get the emails from the parents who wants to come to STEL, wants to learn Chinese. And I talk to some of the parents when they cannot send the kids to STEL to learn Mandarin, and the tears out. I feel so hard. I feel heartbroken. I think we get more opportunities and chance for those parents who wants to do this, who wants to let the kids to learn, give them second choice, to know more about the global experience. So I think a lot of people, recently one of my parents have to move from far away to STEL-based area because she was scared if she cannot just enter in STEL next year. So a lot of people, a lot of kind of parents like this with wants to give the chance for their children to learn more about the Chinese or learn more about the Asian culture or learn about to give a better future for their children.
More than I thought.
Excuse me, I've got a question.
Yes, sir.
It was 1 or 2 years ago, this board recommended a Chinese immersion school in East Mecklenburg, East Voyager.
Okay.
It's apparently doing very, very well. Have you been in contact with them?
Not yet.
To see about their marketing and their faculty recruitment and other issues that you'll be up against in Wake County?
Not yet, but what happened is in our participate every year I got the training, and I go all of the Chinese school, even out of Wake County from other places, and we know how we marketing. Actually, I help our school to doing the marketing, to hiring more and to introduce our school and get more parents and students get in our school. Actually, the next year for STEL, with 2 full immersion class is all full, and a lot of people on the waiting list.
I guess point being though that this East Voyager in Mecklenburg County is a public charter school, so they'll have a lot of the same issues that you have, but they're not a private school or a parochial, or they're not associated with a particular campus, college campus. So I guess I'm asking, have you been able to take advantage of those resources at East Voyager at all? Seeing as how they're being very successful at what they proposed to this board, and we recommended on to the State Board of Education.
Do you want to answer that?
East Voyager currently has 97 students.
And their projections were, I'm looking at their application, was 365, and it was
They had a
a
really
K4.
hard time getting students. The school, however, is doing well. They, but they did struggle for students. Some of it is where they're located. That it's a neighbor. They're across the street from West Meck. Not exactly where you would probably put a Chinese immersion school, but nonetheless, they are doing well. They're and they anticipate that their enrollment will grow. They've been taking kids through the year, but they really struggled with enrollment. They had to really downsize to make it work.
So the major issue has been enrollment?
Yes.
And that's the only major issue?
That's the only issue they've had, is just
All right,
enrollment.
thank you.
Yeah, their projections were 365 in their application, and the enrollment is 97.
What year are they in?
First year.
This is their first.
But where this school is, there's a much higher Asian population currently, correct?
Yes. Yeah, to answer your question, we did look at the application quite a bit very early on the planning stages as we were looking at the closest apples to apples comparisons that we could get, especially within the North Carolina system. So I don't know how much contact has been made with the school itself, but we definitely poured over their application to learn as much as we could.
Okay.
Can I hear? Go ahead.
Can I ask a question about staffing, going back to that? Can you talk about your process or your expertise that you have on hand to be able to sponsor teachers from another country and be able to work with those requirements and
expensive
visas?
Sure. Actually, Participate is kind of a company he organized from not only teachers from China, from all around the world, but Chinese teachers come over here with specific visa, and they come over here with a high qualified teachers. So is that I'm answering your question about?
So are these VIF teachers?
Yeah, but VF right now they changing the name to participate, so it's a little bit confused sometimes about what does participate mean.
So they can only stay 3 years, though?
At the most 5 years, yeah. So those kind of it's kind of like exchange program with those teachers from China and to here, and they support this program.
Have you budgeted in your budget for the additional costs of the VIF teachers? Or the participants?
Not really.
Because that can be very expensive. You figure
Actually,
you have to pay either
yeah.
participate or you have to pay for the visa, the immigration.
Yeah, that's true. But actually, in my opinion, I know more than participate. We have another so many organizations like participate. Yeah, but not only participate.
Well, I mean, what percent of the, I guess the question would be what percent of your teachers you would be bringing from another country that are not already living here with, proper either citizenship or immigration status? Because that's how you would figure out how much that would cost.
Sure, but in my opinion, I think we're gonna hiring more local teachers here, so that will help us to get just a short budget to hiring the teachers from abroad. Yeah, but sometimes what we want to hiring the teacher abroad, because we're thinking about those kind of exchange programs can help use the Chinese teachers and local teacher here. They can communicate, they can get more professional education for our kids. That's what we are thinking.
Let me ask you, if the enrollment was quite a bit less than what you're anticipating, if it was 100 instead of 400, are you prepared to scramble and revise your budget and do what East Voyager did?
So to be perfectly honest, I wasn't super instrumental in the forming of the budget. It was more aligning with everyone else. And I don't know all the ins and outs of the rules. If the charge is accepted, we don't hit the numbers. Are you talking just about the realities of the day-to-day of how to adjust the budget, or are you talking about some kind of compliance or some kind of submission process where we'd submit a secondary budget to the board?
Reality of day-to-day.
Just the day. Oh, absolutely. I mean, there'd be no choice but to be able to make amends. So, I mean, there's all the costs. Most of them are variable costs anyway. They're technology for students. There's supplies. So all of that would scale down. It's really the fixed costs of the facility, the administrator, some of the costs. So we hire fewer teachers, obviously. So the bulk of the budget is represented in variable costs anyway. And so as that scales up or down, that would move.
Another question. In the case of East Voyager, they had a lot of support from the Chinese business community in Charlotte. And also apparently there was academic support. Have you got similar support in Wake County?
Yeah, I'd say very similar in the sense of our own networks within the business community and current administrators of educational organizations. So I'm not sure if you want to speak to your school or other schools. Yes, we have a similar type of network here in the sense of being very plugged in with a lot of the after-school programs that we were talking about.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'd like to hear just a little bit more about Chinese as a second language and English as a second language, because you're going to have to deal with both at the school. So could you kind of give us some sense of what supports you have in place day to day for those students that are going to really struggle with learning Chinese, especially the 3rd and 4th graders coming in, but equally you're struggling, Chinese students who come in with their first language and have to learn English. So talk a little bit about the day-to-day for those two groups of students.
I would feel a lot better about this if they were starting with 100 kids.
Actually, I had full experience for answer your question about the student if they are struggling for Chinese. Actually, the second year when I was in Style, when I was in 1st grade, we have 9 kids come to our classroom with no any experience for learning Chinese, and they are struggling because the rest of the kids already been learning Chinese for the whole kindergarten. So what happened is we are give them differentiation. We are making groups, that group learning. We have like in our classroom, I'm the lead teacher, and I also have assistant teacher. And every year, every day, after the whole class teaching, we are making them small groups, and those group teacher will be helping by another teachers, so the student can making progress by the other teachers. And actually, the data shows off the student catch up very fast. You never can imagine the kids at their age how fast they can ability their strong language. So after at the end of the school year, what happened is all of my 9 students on the standards reached the goals. So which is amazing. Yeah.
Well, just to follow up, if I could, because somebody mentioned after-school tutoring, whether that's going to be required or not. Is there going to be enough time during the school day to make sure those students have the support they need versus requiring after-school tutoring to fill those gaps?
I think what happened is most of the student doesn't need extra help to doing the after-school program. But what happened is every student have a different learning ability. So depends about their learning ability. We're going to talking to their parents. If the parents will think, and their teacher, if the parents and teacher both thinking they are on the same standard, but thinking about, that if the kids need a little bit extra program after school, we can give them and support them to give them after school program to help the kids reach the target. Yeah.
Thank you.
So
Yes, ma'am.
you're currently teaching in the Chinese immersion school.
Yes, ma'am.
What is the literacy and the mathematics program that STAL uses?
We use the same standard with North Carolina standards with mathematics, but for Chinese, we just use our Chinese specific standards for the student. So it's different. But what happened is we reached the same goal of NC standards. So there's no worries about if the student cannot catch up with the standards or the standards different like here. So it's the same. Just add one language, Chinese, in their standards.
I get that piece, but what's the literacy that you're using, the literacy curriculum that you're using to teach? So at STAL, you have kindergartners, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So you're teaching them to learn to read in English as well as Chinese.
Now, what happened in STAL recently, our English teacher were doing the English literacies, not us, so their teachers the English teachers were teaching students the English reading. So we also highly recommend and suggest our parents to help our students to doing the more English at home. So, because every day in kindergarten, right now I'm teaching in kindergarten. In kindergarten, we have 17% of Chinese. So, which means we only have 45 minutes each day for the student to doing the English lessons with the English teacher. But what happened is for the special class, for example, like PE, art, they are also the English teachers. So they get extra English help as well. Yeah, but the English literacy is based by the English teachers. Yeah, because we just focus on the Mandarin part. Yeah.
Okay, so reading, when reading's being the actual art of reading is being taught, that's done by an English teacher.
Chinese reading is by Chinese teachers, but
so you get Chinese reading and English reading.
That's true. Yes, ma'am.
Do your teacher assistants, are they fluent in Mandarin also?
Yes, every teacher are absolutely overqualified because we all come from participate in the organization. Yeah, and the teacher actually in China before they come over here, they have to go through like 5 different testing.
If I could just pause you there, because you just said they all come from participate, but a second ago we said that they weren't all going to come from participate. So they all were formally part of participate? Or
this is at the school she's
at the school she's at. Okay, got it.
It's different.
Yeah, STAL.
Okay, we've got about 7 more minutes before we need to
I have some questions just about
I think
budget.
you got some budget questions,
Yeah.
so let's move on to the budget.
I mean, are you planning on building a building?
that's the facility.
Also, is the board chair, because who do we have? Tell me your
Jan.
role on the board, ma'am. Yeah.
Actually, I'm not the board, but
She's
got
just an
talking
advisor.
about financial.
Okay, because she's answering a lot of questions, and she's not actually on the board,
No,
and so
she's
that's
the advisor.
important. Like, I need to speak to the board chair or someone on the board about. So, what are we doing in terms of facility? Are we building a building? Are you going to be building? You have a $500,000 in
Yeah,
the
for
budget?
the facility, yeah, basically, yeah, we will have two choices. One is to build the facility, and also we are considering to lease. Yeah, if we will check which way will be the best. And to build the facility, we already approached 3 companies, and then we have talked with them. And basically, this company built the facility for charter school, private school, and then they will provide fundings. So we will lease from them for the first several years, and eventually we will buy it from them.
What's the name of the company? Or do
So
you know?
the name, yeah, Highmark School is the first one, and then Schoolhouse Development LLC, which is based in Atlanta, and local is the Blue Hill Development LLC.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, that land is expensive in this area, and also the zoning issues are potentially significant. One of my concerns is that we have a lot of facility, you know, busing, if we're expecting probably 30 to 50% of the students to be low income, maybe less. I don't know. But they have budgeted for busing. They have they plan to transport EC students. We don't have, doesn't seem to be a lot in 400 students. We have, you know, 30,000 in curriculum tax, but only 7,000 in teacher training, in staff development, and that seems really low for. Particularly if this is a big undertaking. We're talking about 400 students. I would feel a lot better if this was a much smaller ramp up, because I think bringing students in 4th grade, 3rd grade, in a testing grade, in an immersion school, I just think, gosh, this would be great if it was K1, 2, or just K1, and we could just ramp this up slowly over time, as opposed to, I don't know, it's just 400 kids, and anyways, can someone talk to me about staff development? Because $7,000 is next to nothing. Are we just assuming, you know, we don't need much training, it's all going to be done in-house? Like, what's the vision on that? Maybe the board chair could talk about that?
I think before going to the board chair, let me finish the facility part.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, because no matter, just now I talk about the first option about to build the building by ourselves. The second option is that to lease the property, and then to lease the property, you know, no matter how many students it is, then we can still use it. And then right now we got the support from Billy Graham Evangelistic Center, and then they are helping us to reach I think several local church, and then those local church will help us to lease the facility to us for the first 1 or 2 years. So in that case,
one of the churches.
Yeah, we already we already reached out several churches, including RCCC, the Summit, and the Salem Baptist Church. Several churches already reached out, and then we got some positive feedback at this point, and then we are waiting for the approval to go to the next step. Yeah. So regarding to the other issue, I think
I can see them wanting to do that, but I can't
answer about the 7,000 people.
Yeah, talk to us about that.
We are looking for the extra funding for that. And we have others and surplus, a lot surplus to add for this. Usually, if we need that, we will use this.
Okay.
Where's the surplus coming from?
Surplus
what's the source of the surplus?
Surplus, we have lots surplus. Usually, we for that in case where need this.
So you're talking about your budget surplus?
Yeah, budget surplus.
What's the projected 93,000? I mean, that's not huge. Not for 400 kids, and not.
Particularly if you don't really get 400 kids.
Yeah, you're not going to get 400 kids.
All right. We got time for one more question if somebody has one.
Mine's just a comment.
Well, then we'll move on in and we'll start discussing. Thank you all for your.
Yeah, mine's a comment about the calendar. They have 6.5 hour school day with an hour being delegated to lunch and recess. So that only leaves 5.5 hours of instruction, which does not meet the minimum requirement for the state. So that's just so you know.
Okay. Any other comments or discussion?
I mean, my comment is that I'm excited to see something different. So I'm excited about a language immersion school. So I just have real reservations about the ramp up, and to me it just seems like a smaller starting point, a K2 start, a K1 start would be much more strategic and would position the school for greater success. And then I think potentially fleshing out. I still don't really feel convinced on the, like, we're going to be able to teach effective ELA in 3rd and 4th grade right now. Like, I have not been convinced of that plan. So I think I'm torn because I'm excited. This is what we're talking about. We're innovative. I feel I'm very much like, I like the innovation, but I have reservations that are keeping me saying that one more year. I know they've applied a bunch of times, but one more year and get it right.
I'm going to jump in before Alan does on this one.
I am so hurt.
I'm very impressed with this board and the area that they want to open in. I have no doubt in my mind this will be a successful school. And we need it. We need the innovation and the differentiation. The Chinese immersion is a growing demand. And if there's a group of folks that can pull it off, I'm very impressed with what they brought to the table here.
Do you think they can get 400 kids?
I do.
I don't know.
I've been to the area.
I will say, I don't know if they can get 400 kids, but I've been to the area too, and I've gone to some of the other schools, and there's, I think they're going to get more than 300.
So you
I don't think they can get. I don't know if they can get to 400, but I mean, I think
they're
there's.
going to retain who they get.
I think they can. I think they can. I mean, I think it's it's especially the area that they're talking about going to. They gave us demographic numbers for Wake County as a whole, but when you talk about 6.5% of Wake County being Asian, and then you really want to know where that 6.5% is. Most of it is in the Cary area, around where they're looking, and I think it's. I think that's going to help, and I think there's going to be a lot of other parents that are not Asian background that say this is something I would like for my child because that's going to be an opportunity for them. I would love for my children to be bilingual in anything. I guess they can speak English in country. I don't know if there's, they learn that in Johnston County.
When you have strip malls in the area where every store has dual language, Chinese and English, and there's Chinese specialty items in these stores,
the local stores,
the non-Chinese families are going to these stores and saying, gosh, I wish, my kids knew more about this. I mean, I think they're going to get a good, diverse population of not only just Chinese, but families who are immersed in this Chinese American community and want to be more part of it. So I think it's a great bridge for that community, a great bridge.
I think that the numbers are going to be difficult but attainable. I think I'm going to compare this to a school that we looked at yesterday. I'm pleased that they're starting at the younger grades.
Yeah.
And I think their education plans, frankly, just more innovative and better.
Yeah, I don't think the school yesterday that we looked at was a dual immersion.
No, it's an approach.
It was a pedagogy.
Yeah.
Well, if you look
I
at
just would feel really good if it was K2.
kindergarten year
200
one,
kids.
they have 130 is what they're anticipating. But in year 2, it drops down to half to 65. So I'm not really sure why they've done that, but it's kind of built-in contingency. If they don't get their enrollment year 1, they have lower count in year 2, for at least for kindergarten.
If their budget is flexible enough to be able to work with, if they don't get their numbers, the school in Charlotte pulled it off. And they got 1/3 of the number of kids that they were expecting, but they've managed to survive the year. I mean, and they had to make a lot of changes, but they've managed to survive. And so if there's enough flexibility in the budget to allow them to be able to make those kinds of adjustments.
I don't think there
They
is
can do
unless their facility situation changes.
Yeah, that
There
facility
is
is
no,
fine.
I don't see a lot of flexibility in the budget because I think they're teaching, you know, particularly if they're spanning those grades and then they have to get a certain type of teacher. I think with a $500,000 facility line, it's hard for me to see in only a $90,000 surplus. I mean, I guess they would just, if they were to get
500,000
approved, the
is
first
based on
thing
building,
that.
isn't it? The
What's that?
500,000 is based on building.
I can almost guarantee you they're gonna end up renting when they try to build in this
Yeah.
area,
Yeah.
at least for the first couple years.
I mean, I think if they were to get approved, the first thing I would say is you need to come up with like 3 different enrollment
additional
backup
budgets.
plans,
Definitely.
you know, and one that has a dramatic, cut your student enrollment in half and consider a change in grade span.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question? Are they going to immerse in the Mandarin language, and English is going to be secondary?
Pretty much.
In other words, basically, these are going to be Mandarin-speaking people that know a little English.
Well, no, a lot of them are gonna be English speaking to start with.
Yeah, I know, but then they need to continue their training.
But
I
they're
mean,
gonna have-
age 5, you know how to talk, but you don't know how to read much.
I think they said all, the English class would be 100% in English and social studies would be 100% in English. Yeah.
For
And
K2, the day will
reading,
be.
and reading will be both, one English,
K2
one Chinese.
Says K2 day will be 30% English, 70% Mandarin, 3 to 8. Instructional language for ELA, social studies and science will be in English. Instructional language for Chinese, math, art, PE, media, technology will be in Mandarin, thus 50%, 50% English, 50% Mandarin. Would worry a little bit about math in the Common Core if you have students that are non-speakers. I mean, that's really, that's not, I mean, we have a hard enough time
Doing English.
teaching Common Core math to kids in English.
And I agree that it takes a special kind of
Right.
teacher.
Well, teaching math.
Exactly. But we have seen these dual immersion programs work. It's not that we have not seen them work.
The beauty of learning to read in Mandarin is that you can then read in Cantonese and 100 other dialects in China. They figured that out 2,000 years ago. So you're not just learning, if you learn to read in Mandarin, you're learning a lot of different Chinese dialects.
Does the issue, Sherry, you brought up about the number of instructional hours per day, I mean, they have to address that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a given.
That would have to be
I mean,
addressed.
it's only short by about 10 hours, but still, that needs to be fixed.
I think you can adjust your school calendar throughout Ready to Open,
Yeah.
right?
So then I probably should mention 2 things that I saw in the calendar that don't affect whether or not they should have the school, but probably they should know. For Thanksgiving break, they're only taking Thanksgiving Day. American kids aren't coming to school on Wednesday or Friday. That's not happening. And,
Work.
and,
Not on Friday.
Good Friday, that doesn't work either. So you might want to, it doesn't affect, because you can change your calendar, but it is worth looking at.
How about Christmas?
Are they taking the
They
Chinese?
did take Christmas off.
Is the Chinese New Year day off?
It's a good job we have
I
Cheryl
would imagine
here.
it would be. I would imagine it would be.
I'll, since we got about 5 minutes to go, I'm gonna go ahead and move that we recommend to the state board that this school be moved to Ready to Open status. So do we have a second?
I will second that.
Any further discussion or debate?
Mr.
Cheryl,
Chair.
can I ask a question about East Voyager?
Uh-huh.
What was their proposed grade span?
I
K4.
think they might, were they K2? K4,
No,
they
K4.
K4?
Did they start K4?
Mm-hmm.
But you said the numbers like,
Yeah, I don't think they have very many 3rd and 4th graders. I think it's mostly young children.
They can do what they want, but I would, if this passes, I would be the first person to vote for an amendment to their charter to change from K to 2 and 200 kids, because I think it would be a much more positive opening. I'm leaning towards supporting it simply largely because, you know, this is not the same. I feel like we just keep seeing a lot of the same applications of like you're basically doing school. You're just trying to
Picking a different place to
you're
do
just
it.
picking a different place to do it, and maybe you're doing some core knowledge, keep Joe happy, and you know.
I don't see that as much now that Joe didn't have a vote.
I mean, this is a
Chair,
different.
I'm sorry, what did you just say?
I was just.
They're
making a
picking
joke.
on
I was
me
just,
instead
I was
of you
picking
this
on Joe.
time.
I was just making a joke. I think that I think this is innovative. This is not something that is being done, and I think that's exciting. I want us to be supportive of innovation in this way. So I'm leaning towards supporting it. I just really.
And we
I think I'm right about their starting.
encourage as they go through the RTO process that they
To at least look at.
look at that enrollment number.
We can't make you, but I think
And that
it would
budget.
behoove you, and we're not going to stipulate anything. We don't do that anymore. But if this were approved, I think one, you have to also understand that this has got to go through the state board, and I think that I just think that it would behoove you to really listen to what you're hearing from the board here in terms of how to get this done right. And too big, too fast with too many grades is kind of can be a recipe for disaster.
Especially starting out the gate with EOGs.
Yeah.
And you're not going to be held accountable for your Mandarin, but you
Right.
will be held accountable for your EOGs.
And it gives you a year of breathing room to 2 years of breathing room before you're facing down the state test.
And I'd also encourage them to talk with the leadership. I mean, we just did this a year ago with East Voyager, or 2 years ago. 2 years
Yeah,
ago.
'cause they opened this year.
They're in their first year operating in
And
Charlotte,
it
Mecklenburg
really,
County.
I think it would be helpful to talk to them particularly about the problems they ran into with marketing and attracting students.
Was there a magnet school in Charlotte that also
There are
had-
several.
Yes, yeah, they have several.
There are several. We don't have one that's just Chinese immersion. We have Chinese and Spanish immersion in the same building, but I think there are like 3.
I want to highlight their mission. I think that as opposed to some of the missions that we see, I think it's really clear. I just appreciate that. The mission of CE Academy is to create an English Chinese learning community for students of all backgrounds to maximize bilingual proficiency, academic excellence, and cultural diversity awareness to help them succeed in an era of globalization. I think it's a really
it's a really
clear and
good-
clean
they voted
mission.
together. It's a good mission
Appreciate
statement.
that. Like, it tells you pretty much what they're doing.
All right, any further discussion or debate? We have about a minute and a half.
I just want to add too, when you look at their board, it's a strong, diverse board, and they have a lot of expertise in different areas. That's key also.
All right, any further discussion or debate? All right, so the motion is to recommend to the state board that CE Academy move to ready to open status. All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed? All right, so it looks like a 9-1, if I'm correct on that, with Ms. Gibbs dissenting. All right, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Look forward, I hope it works out.
Thank you very much.
Get those surveys, bring them to the first RTO. Lots more
Yeah.
surveys.
We really appreciate the feedback on the RTO and the next steps for that. Appreciate it.
I would take those seriously. Okay, time is 12:19. We're right on time. I said 12:20 for lunch, so time for lunch.
Guess who's gonna be first in line?
Joe gets up before we even adjourn.
Wonder what we're having today.
Phyllis. Here we go. Wait.